Gene Hoglan. Gene Hoglan. All right, cool.
Criss Garza.
Dude, we're fucking here, dude.
We are absolutely, we're nowhere else but here.
That's true.
Darn tootin'.
Gene Hoglan, it is an honor to sit here and chat with you, man.
Greetings, Criss. The honor is mine. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, also to officially meet.
Right.
You know, it's crazy how many people we cross paths in person, but never never like handshake and
Right.
so.
Our paths have now officially crossed. So
Yeah.
heck yeah.
So right now you're currently in San Diego?
Yep. Well, currently I'm in Santa Ana.
Oh, yeah,
but,
currently.
but indeed, I live in San Diego. I grew up here in California. You know, for the most part, I was born in Dallas. Grew up in the Los Angeles area, Long Beach, essentially.
Yeah, you moved to California when you were 4, right?
That's right.
Okay. Why did you move?
It was, I couldn't take Texas anymore. I had to, had to hitch a ride out to California just to get out of Texas. I was leaving too many criminal activities behind when I was 4. No, it was just my dad. My dad got a better gig out in California.
Okay.
So he started working for the aerospace industry,
Okay.
and so actually, my dad was one of the first things he did in the aerospace industry was he helped design parts of the space shuttle.
Really?
Yeah, and so he was working for Rockwell at the time, and then he went to go work with Northrop after that. And so it was just, California was a better place than El Paso, Texas. But I've still got a lot of family in El Paso, so that's kind of that was a home when I was a kid. So there you go.
So did you go from Dallas to El Paso? And then?
Indeed.
Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so just it went back to El Paso tons for Christmases and Thanksgivings and stuff. But I've been a California person ever since 72 or so. And
70s.
What's that?
70s.
Yeah. So I've lived all over the planet, though. It's
True.
So I've had places all over the place. So there you go. Now I'm in San Diego.
Yeah, and okay, so you go to Los Angeles area. Like I kept seeing Downey.
Right. Well, actually, that is, I suppose, that's kind of where Dark Angel got their start.
Okay, so that's why I keep seeing Downey, and then
Right.
and then you mentioned you actually used to live here.
That's right. Yeah, for a brief moment, I spent about a year here in Santa Ana, and
Wow.
then we moved back to Long Beach after that. And this was all when I was a kid. So
Child.
absolutely,
You did a lot of moving around.
yeah, sure did. And then once we got to Long Beach, we tended to stay there, and my folks stayed in Long Beach, and that's when I started bouncing all over the planet. I've been on tour essentially since I was about 16.
You started touring when you were 16, huh?
Right.
Yeah. You were doing lights for Slayer, correct?
That's right. Yeah.
Okay. 16 years old.
Yep.
If I can imagine that, because if we were looking for like crew or someone to take on tour with, you're like, you're 16? Nah.
Right.
But back then, I'm sure it's like whoever wants to go.
Well, John Araya, Tom's younger brother, he was 15 at the time. So
He was 15?
yeah, and Tom himself was like 23. Carrie,
Yeah.
Carrie, and the
those
other guys,
kids, man.
Dave was 18. Carrie and Jeff were about 19. So Tom was the oldest guy, and he was the only guy in his 20s. So I remember Tom telling me a few years ago, he was like, "Yeah, I had to come over to your place and talk to your parents." And I
What
was
did your
like,
parents say?
"Talk to my parents? What for?" He's like, "Well, you were a minor. I had to get their permission."
That's a tough sell.
Right? Oh, they were like, "Oh, take him."
Oh, really? Oh,
yeah,
wow.
man, send him on the road.
Get
Yeah.
this kid out of here. He's fucking playing drums. He's playing Rush songs. all day.
Right? Yeah.
Gosh.
Get rid of this kid. So that was pretty cool. So yeah, those guys had spent, they had spent some time at my pad from time to time. So my folks knew Tom, and they'd been to a couple of the shows and things like that. So
Yeah, essentially, you've seen the thrash scene like start. Because you were like you were one of like the 30 people at like a Slayer show.
indeed, yes, that is true. Yeah, I am absolutely, OG thrash metal of 1982, 83 kind of thing, going to all the shows. And, there was no scene,
There's no scene.
like even Metallica stopped playing, LA pretty early. And so there was really a time when there was Dark Angel before I was in Dark Angel, and there was Slayer. And, before Slayer was a thrash band, they were kind of a cover band. They did great covers,
They're a cover band?
Yeah, to a large degree. Yeah,
I didn't know that.
doing Maiden songs and Deep
Okay.
Purple songs. Like I remember seeing I saw them like maybe at a backyard party or a high school or a VFW hall or somewhere when they kind of looked. Yeah, it was
Man,
even before
they're kind of hot.
that era. I remember that
Dude,
shirt.
hot thrash, is that a genre name?
Well, that picture was definitely taken in '84 because Carrie's got he's got the wristbands on. He's got the that was his first one that he made. I remember when he
He
made that.
made it. I was wondering. I was literally about to ask you, Gene, where do you buy that thing?
Right, he made
No,
it.
you
He
made
made
it.
all his old stuff. So that
Oh
was
shit.
yeah. I remember carrying that in when he first made it. I was there at the first show where he had met. That was in January of '84, and they were playing the Roxy. And I just remember like passing by his van or whatever as he was pulling his gear out, and he had this
Yeah.
big old honking thing. I was like, "Hey, let me grab that for you." I was like, "God, this thing's really heavy," like
How do you even like?
a lot of weight on
How do
that
you even
stuff.
play with
So
that freaking thing?
how do you play with that exactly? So yeah, there you go. So I was real young, working for them, and
And
they were just there. There was no scene at the time.
there's no scene.
There was Slayer, there was Dark Angel, there was a couple of the harder edge metal bands
Like
like
Venom or something.
well, indeed, yeah. Oh, obviously from over from England, but in the LA scene, you
Oh, in
had
LA,
bands
yeah.
like Abattoir and Bloodlust and Savage Grace and
Mm.
bands like that that weren't quite thrash, but they were heavier than the rock, Van Halen, Motley Crue kind of thing.
Mm.
But there was no scene. That's why I've always thought it was really, I've always found it to be really adorable when somebody would write to me and say, yeah, there's no scene in my town. You got to go 2 towns over for us to be able to play the club in that town, or
Yeah.
there's no bands to play with over here. We got to travel 35 miles away, and because they got a better scene over there.
So I had no scene.
Yeah, I was like, man, we created the scene, So there you go there.
So from nothing to
Right, yeah. I mean, but those
How-
30 hardcores, they were into it. Like Slayer had a great crowd, Dark Angel had a great crowd, and like I said, that was way before I was playing for Dark Angel. So, though Dark Angel and Slayer did a whole ton of shows. I used to see both bands play together.
interesting.
Yeah, man.
So Gene, for you, you started playing air drums when you were 8 years old,
Right.
and then that would progress to you being 9, and that's how you found like Ted Nugent, Rush.
Right.
You said an artist called Angel. Am I?
Yeah.
Okay. I
Mhm.
never heard of this artist before. My Angel. Did he say Angel?
Yeah.
Okay. How? What kind of artist is that?
Well, they were. Oh God, I remember that show. Remember that one?
That's fucking brutal.
Slayer had played with Venom the night before
Hell
with
yeah.
Exodus at the Hollywood Palladium. But well, Angel was a band that they were signed to the same label as Kiss, and they were sort of the anti-Kiss. They had they were the exact
course.
opposite, but they were a great rock slash kind of metal. There you go, man, and that's
Okay, so if you're the opposite Kiss, you're obviously not gonna wear face paint, correct?
right. And so that picture that we are looking at there, that we were looking at, that is from their Hell of a Band era. That album came out in 1976, and
76.
for those fans of like say a Deep Purple or they would fit totally well with all the classic rock
Okay.
but they were, for me, they really leaned on the side of metal. They were
okay.
they were pretty aggressive. I mean, don't let that real pretty boy image kind of fool you. That picture there on the right was from an album called On Earth as It Is in Heaven. Yeah, that was from that era, which that was their third record.
The hair.
Right.
You kind of love the hair.
Oh, well, actually, that is from a little bit later than that because I could tell that they got a new bassist in that photo. But yeah, they all had the hair.
Oh, you're in, Gene.
I am such a rock and roll
You're
historian. Yeah, man,
Okay. You remember the hairstyle. You remember their hairstyles and the bass players in or out.
fair enough. Yeah, I was just such a rock fan growing up. Just rock fan of everything. Music fan. So, I'm pretty well versed in even the doo-wop era of rock and roll, and just you name it. If it's rock based, I'm
You're
really
in.
really into it from all those early eras. Absolutely.
And then so you're air drumming away, and then you finally get a drum kit when you were 13 years old, right?
That's right. Yeah.
Okay. And and you would set up your air drum kit like you had in your head with the actual kit.
Yeah, I did.
I never heard about that ever.
Right?
That's
Yeah.
crazy.
Well, that's and that kind of leads to how I'm an open-handed player,
Mm.
and so that really is just it. The reason I'm an open-handed player is just it's how my record player was situated in my bedroom when I was playing air drums or pounding on the bed along with it. That's awesome. Oh man, that's great. That's
Oh
my
wow,
actual kit.
this is it. That's cool.
That is pretty much my setup now. Yeah, absolutely.
So
So
so is this in your air drumming head?
this is tiny compared to my air drumming kit.
Okay.
My air drum kit was huge, man.
Yeah.
It was bigger than Neil Peart, you know.
Oh shit.
But because I would sit on the side of my bed, and like say, if you're sitting on the side of the bed, I would sit on like say this same side of the
Yeah.
bed, and if you were to if this like pad was not here, you would probably notice. Well, let's see if this works here. No, didn't remove. But the top corner is going to be a little higher pitched than as you go to the middle of the bed. So as you're going boom boom bap boom 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 bap boom
Oh,
boom
yeah,
boom
yeah.
bap boom boom, the top corner would be a little bit higher pitched because it's tighter. It's the corner. So since my record player was right there, and I would sit right here on my bed, and that I would just kind of pound on my bed. This was before I started turning it into the air drumming kit, but that's how I started playing, was just boop boop bap boop 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 bap boop 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 bap. I just like boop boop bap boop 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 bap. So that's why I'm doing that. So there you go. I'm just doing that. And so if my record player had been placed on the other side of my bed, I would be the standard, typical right-handed
Oh,
drummer
interesting.
now. But since it was on that side, I'd change the record, and then I'd come back and just pound on my bed, and then I would start. Now I was like, well, shoot, man, I'm watching all the rock shows of the day, all the midnight specials and Don Kirshner's, and for anybody, you could probably
Don Kirshner.
Google those shows, midnight special. Yeah, there you go. That's awesome. Yeah, he had a show, the Don Kirshner rock concert or whatever, on every Saturday night sort of thing. And this guy actually, he created the Monkees. Remember the Monkees?
The band, yes.
Monkey, yeah, he was part of yeah, there you go. Don Kirshner's rock concert. There you go.
1974 to 1975, in case you're just listening.
Right. All of that. And so we used to stay up really late on Saturday nights and watch that. And so I was just soaking in all sorts of rock. You can see, yeah, everybody was on this show. The night before on Friday nights was the midnight special. And so that was another rock show where you'd see the live concerts from all these bands. And so I was just absorbing everything, and I was learning how I would watch the guys playing drums, and then I would just kind of emulate that. And that's when I started getting my my air drum kit together. And so that's where I guess it's called visualization. Like, I was never familiar with that term growing up at all,
He
but
visualized it.
I would, yeah. I mean, you boom bap, there's a snare. You tap your foot along with like, I would listen to Rush songs or whoever, Pat Travers, whoever it was, Kiss, Cheap Trick, Aerosmith, Ted Nugent, all those guys, and I would they had a great drummer, David Robinson from the Cars. I would listen, and I was kind of giving myself a drum lesson every song I would listen to, because I would just pick up what the what the kick drum's doing. I hear the hi-hat when they do a fill. I know what I can imagine what the fill, that kind of thing. It's like, okay, well, I was just constantly giving myself a drum lesson, and when it came time to sit on a kit for the very first time, it was, it's like I already had all this. It's now you're just actually hitting things. You've had all this practice, air practice, and then when you're sitting on a drum kit, it's not that much different from practicing on a big, huge air drum.
That's a very cost-effective approach.
How right?
Yeah.
I tell people that all the time. When there's
Anyone could do that.
anyone can do that. I tell guys that all the time. Guys come to me and say, "Man, I'd love to pick up the drums, but
Too expensive.
yeah, they're too expensive, or I got kids. I'm putting kids through college, or whatever. There's whatever their reasonings for it not to happen. I'm like, dude, you don't even need sticks. You don't even. You have a pair of sticks right here. So like, there you go. You could, just you can air drum. Everybody has rhythm. Everybody can do this, and don't just thrash around like a goof. If you want, I don't know, any song by an AC/DC song. Just boom, don't, just practice like that, and you can. There you go. You are playing drums before you even think you could. So there you go.
That's a great approach, Gene. Even like you being a drummer, do you think like the AC/DC beat is actually extremely difficult? Because as a listener, it sounds easy, but I know this has to be hard to hit the groove right.
Well, that was the thing, totally. When I was when I was a kid, I used to think that, that guy's terrible. What a terrible drummer that guy is. Neil Peart is awesome. Tommy Aldridge is awesome. Those guys can play. But as I got a little bit older, it was like, no, there's actually a lot to what he's doing, and especially to be able to just lock in with a groove like that. And it took me seeing probably For Those About to Rock, like, concert video that they did. It was just the video for the song. I could tell that the drummer was really pounding. Yeah, here somewhere. That's not quite this one, but just their promo video for the song. I was like, wow, the drummer's really hitting hard. So that is what he's doing. He's keeping a simple beat, but he's really pounding. So there's that to that, and of course the basic tenets of drumming are, you got to keep the meter, you got to keep the rhythm, you got to keep the meter really solid, and Phil Rudd is a master of that. So that's why he is a really good drummer, and I understand his approach. I didn't get it when when you're a kid, you want flash and thrash, that.
Of course.
So, there you go.
So there is something to that. Hitting like a 4/4, just 1-2 beat is actually, there's something to hitting that simple
Indeed.
fucking groove.
That's why you have guys like Sib Hashian from Boston. That guy is just so tight and so solid. Like here, he's pounding his drums really. I know he's just playing a really easy beat, but he's actually hitting pretty darn hard. He's not just tapping. So, but guys like Sib Hashian or simpler drummers, that just had, natural meter and just like nothing flashy or psychotically insane, but it was just real solid and real good. And so, I can appreciate a drummer like that. I grew into appreciating drummers like that more as I got a little bit older.
It happens, huh? You get older, you're like, oh, that's actually pretty sick.
Yeah, totally.
It sucks, dude. Sometimes, just the age will give you a perspective.
Right.
Sweet Water. When the band needs anything for a tour or we need something here for the podcast, Sweet Water is where we go. They are the #1 online retailer for pro audio and music instruments. So if you need any music gear fast, click the link in the description below so they know you came from this podcast. That's Sweet Water, your #1 place for pro audio instruments. I'm here to tell you about DistroKid, the easiest way to get the music you or your band wrote on all streaming platforms. Get your songs onto iTunes, Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube Music, and more. Check it out at distrokid.com/VIP/Garza and get 30% off your membership. That's distrokid.com/VIP/Garza to get 30% off.
So when you were 13, did you already go straight into like Rush songs or like a?
Pretty much, yeah. Like I remember the first time I ever sat on a drum kit. I just happened to be with my cousin. I was visiting El Paso, and my cousin Ken was he was 6 years older than me, so I was 13, so I was probably 12. Yeah, I was 12 at the time, so he was like, I don't know, 18.
Yeah.
He had his teenage rock band with his buddies, and they all seemed like adults to me. Like when you're 12, an 18-year-old,
Oh yeah,
that's an adult, And so he's hanging out with all these other, grown men, and we went to one of his rehearsals one day. We stopped in there for some reason, and I think I forgot what we were doing, but he picks up his guitar and I just sat behind the kit and we just started jamming. And I had already been playing air drums for 4 or 5 years at that point. And my cousin, like, I remember the very first song we played was "Man on the Silver Mountain" by Rainbow, and he, after a couple of songs, we're playing some Grand Funk, playing some of this, some Ted Nugent, whatever, and he's like, "Dude, when did you start playing drums? Like, you're not bad at this." And
Oh wow.
I kept my air drumming, a secret. Like, I'm in my room. My parents have no idea what I'm doing. I mean, I could run up to no good in there, but really, I'm just, I'm
Is he beating up his pillow?
right.
That poor pillow.
Yeah, what the hell is he doing there? Sounds rhythmic. Ooh, weird, but no. So, my cousin was pretty surprised. He's like, "Dude, you're not bad." So that just gave me some inspiration to just like, okay, well, this is really fun. And so, I was into all the classic rock, all the, Alex Van Halen. I mean, he's a very underrated, very iconic drummer to us drummers, and just all guys like that. Even Peter Criss, he was always kind of bagged on back in the day, but I mean, there was a lot about his style that brought me out.
Is he one of those drummers too, where like, people just talk shit on, but then as time progresses, it's like, oh wait, he's actually sick. Is he like is he in that same category?
I'm not sure if he ever got to the category of like, wow, he's sick, but I mean, he deserves praise. I mean, he brought a lot of like there's sort of a kind of augmented shuffle to the song Detroit Rock City. Everybody knows Detroit Rock City, but there's a part in the middle of it where he's kind of playing sort of a shuffly beat, and that was my first introduction really to a shuffle. And
What is a shuffle, to be honest?
and he's got he's got that right before there's a lead. All that part, he's playing this cool beat, which I realized as I got older, it's like, well, that's to a degree, that is a shuffle beat. And there's a lot of great shuffles. Like, you might be familiar with "Fool in the Rain" by Led Zeppelin.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Oh, baby. Yeah, from that album there. And
Is this it?
yeah, that's a great shuffle.
You got it. That's sick, dude.
That's an example of a shuffle beat, and that's there's a lot of taste involved in that beat. And so for a guy like Peter Criss, who had something, it wasn't quite that, but I was like, wow, that is sort of a shuffle-esque sort of thing that he's doing.
Interesting.
Ghost notes on the snare and just little pickup notes and things like that just bring out a little bit of taste. I thought Peter Criss was really good for that. He was just a good, solid, light hitting rock drummer. He, for me, on Kiss songs, he had better meter than, like, say, Charlie Watts or somebody from the Rolling Stones, who a lot of people have argued is the greatest rock and roll drummer in history. But I never really found that about Charlie Watts, because I always found that Charlie Watts had some meter issues, and that's kind of the one thing that.
What was, as far as like timing or what?
Right, yeah,
Okay.
like maybe it was
Meter issues. It's a very polite way to say that.
right. Yeah,
He's sloppy.
Meter was not his friend. But like, say, if you were to listen to, like, say, just the intro to a song like "Brown Sugar," for instance, it starts off really mellow and very like laid back. Maybe they told Charlie, "Hey, lean into it towards the end." But if you were to like just start "Brown Sugar" and then just fast forward to the very end, like the tempos are just totally different. And so there you go.
Well, Gene, your your timeline, even as you were early teen, really seems to have not ended since you got like a drum set.
Right.
It seems like you just got the drum set and now you're literally here. Records later, man. So So just by coincidence, like just a weird coincidence, you actually got asked to join a band called Dark Angel, not the Dark Angel now.
Right.
You got asked to join a separate band that you went to high school with, correct?
That is right.
Okay.
Yeah, man.
So it's so weird.
Well researched.
Man,
Thank
how
you,
do you?
Chris.
It's what? That's such a weird coincidence. There's no
None
no
whatsoever.
connection.
None whatsoever. It was in.
And then by also weird, you said you will join, but you got to change the name because the band name sucks. Correct?
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I just didn't think Dark Angel was a very
Oh, wow.
heavy name, you
Yeah.
know. And they were like, "Well, that's our philosophy on life." And these are 15-year-old kids.
Oh,
It's
sure.
our we're bikers and
We're
all that kind of
bikers?
stuff. Yeah,
In high
we're
school?
yeah.
Oh wow.
And so,
Sick.
what they wanted to be and all
Sure,
that.
sure.
So that
That's-
fits in with our lifestyle. And I was
Yeah.
like, "Oh, hey, okay, you got it. That's fine." Yeah, a completely unrelated Dark Angel 2 years before I ever joined the Dark Angel we all know now. So,
2 years separate.
yeah.
How old are you when they asked you? Since it
I
high
was
school?
15 then.
15.
And then when I joined Dark Angel, I was just turned 17.
Mm.
And so I had just come off the road with Slayer, for instance.
So Slayer fires you, and you go home early,
Right?
right?
To a degree, yeah, sort of.
Yeah,
I was a terrible tech, so I don't
Of
blame
course.
them for not taking me back out because
of course.
they came home for a few days, and then the next run, they didn't ask me
Just didn't-
to join them. I was like, I don't blame you guys. I was horrible, so there you go.
That's old school. We're just not even going to tell him. He's just going to figure it out.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, that's pretty hardcore. So,
Well, it's not like they could hit up your cell phone.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like they'll give you one call on the landline.
Yeah, God, totally.
What? He didn't pick up.
Well, that was one thing about I got the Dark Angel thread going now. So
Yeah.
we got our threads. Tour starts next week, so
Nice.
everybody's all excited about everything. So
Great.
but that was one thing that like when Tom Araya gave me his number, I mean, he was very, very generous with his time to me because I would call Tom every single day. Like I knew what
About
time he
what?
got off work. Just to shoot the shit about nothing. I'm a 15-year-old kid and I loved Slayer. Those guys were, I dug them as a band and we became pals and all that sort of stuff. But
Mm-hmm.
I'd call Tom all the time and he'd always take my call. He could have been like, "Oh, I'm tired of talking to this kid. I'm just getting home off work. He's calling me the second I get home from work."
Oh wow.
So, but he was very generous with his time, and I always appreciated that totally.
That's awesome. I never heard anyone say anything bad about him.
I know, right?
Tom, yeah.
You can't. What an amazing man he was. He was my favorite rock star. Absolutely.
Really?
Absolutely. Yeah. And this was before he was a rock star. Like
Wow.
this is just when he was just a cool guy. That's all. And he helped me a lot when I was a kid. He helped a lot with a lot of my just helped put me on a nice path of trains of thought, like
Mm.
how to value oneself. I remember,
Really?
I was having a birthday come up, and I was just like, I don't care. My friends want to throw me this party, and my birthday's like day after tomorrow, or whatever, and I don't care about it. He's like, wait a minute, that's your birthday. That Christmas is not important. Thanksgiving is not important. The day of your birth, that should be the biggest holiday that anybody celebrates. And I'm a 15-year-old kid. I'm about to turn 16. That's going over my head. But I'm like, wait a minute. That makes a lot of sense. I get that, So to celebrate oneself, and he's not that much older than I am. He's only 6-7 years older than I am. So, having that sort of.
So he's like 21, and he's telling like a 15-year-old kid this.
Pretty much, yeah.
I didn't have that mindset into my 30s.
Right.
Incredible.
Yeah, absolutely. So, he was a next level thinker, especially to me when I was 15. So thank you, Tom Araya. Very cool.
I wonder what he saw in you.
Good question. I don't even know what I saw in myself, but that's a good question. I've never thought of
wonder.
that. So interesting.
So I've always wondered, like, because as you'll do, Gene, you'll do like a deep dive on people, then you figure out, oh, they're connected to this person and this person, and then they're hanging out and talking. But I'm always like, how did that other person know?
Right.
What that person had before they even had it?
Right.
It's like a You can't even put words to that. It's like a subconscious. Oh, this person has it. They're probably gonna do something. I don't know.
That could be some form of intangible, an intangible process of thought that we don't even, especially when you're 15 or you're 21. Like, how do you even know where you're going? I mean, Tom's life was coming up in front of him. Mine
Yeah.
hadn't even started yet,
Hadn't even
and
started
I
yet.
was pretty darn busy at that time. So, you could just you never know what's right around the corner for you. Absolutely, but if you keep yourself your legs churning forward, good things are going to happen for everybody, I suppose.
Keep going forward.
Indeed.
Just keep stepping forward.
Right.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I was. So this is one area about your life where I was a little bit gray. Okay, because it's the two dark angels that got me confused. So
Mm-hmm.
one of the dark angels was going to school, went to high school with the Metallica guys, correct?
That's this Dark Angel.
Okay, got it.
The current.
Okay, cool. I didn't want to assume because sometimes I assume
No,
stuff and then I'm wrong.
No, you've
okay.
done some great research so far, Chris.
All right,
Absolutely.
all right,
Thank
cool.
you.
So you really saw it come from just
From
nothing.
absolutely nothing. Yeah, like I was just telling Jose Mangan that I was, it's a very long, convoluted story that I will try to shorten, but
No,
I,
please tell it. I'm honored to hear it.
well, we were talking about, when I was on the road with Metallica back in 2010, Metallica would take their opening acts out to dinner after their show.
I've only heard rumors.
Not right, and so
Sick.
we were in Moscow, and I was with Fear Factory at the time, and we had Gojira also at the table, and it was just Lars didn't make it, but everybody else did. So we were all talking about like what was your first instrument and what was your first record and what was
Oh,
it?
yeah.
And so I had asked James, I was like, "Hey James, do you remember your first Iron Maiden shirt?" And he was like, "No, man, I don't think I ever rocked. I don't think I ever had a Maiden shirt." And I was like,
Oh.
"Well, you did." And let me tell you. And so I proceeded to tell him that
Yeah.
at this backyard party on July 4th, 1981, I was 13 at the time. That would have made him 17. I see this guy wearing an Iron Maiden shirt that was this was, like I said, this was 81, so nobody knew who Maiden was.
Yeah.
It was the first album cover, a white print on a black shirt, and I went up to this guy and I was like, "Oh my God, you have this Maiden shirt. What? I've never even met anybody who even knows who Iron Maiden is." I knew two people that knew who
Oh,
Iron
wow.
Maiden was.
Only two? That's crazy.
And
Wow.
I'm like, "Where did you get that shirt? My God, like, where'd you get it?" He's like, "I made it. I made it at school." I was like, "Oh, man, well, can you make me one?"
Made it at school.
And he's like, "No." And I was like, I'd fish in my pocket. I'd like,
$1.
"I got $5." Like, and at that time, even concert shirts were maybe $5. So,
That's
like,
a lot of money then.
right. So I was
Five
like,
is a
"Here's
lot.
$5. Can you make me one?" He's like, "No." So I went and found my sister at the party and got $5 from her. I came back to him with $10. "Here's $10. Will you please? I've never met anybody. Nobody will ever have an Iron Maiden shirt. Nobody will ever know who these guys are because they're so heavy. This is my only chance to ever get an Iron Maiden shirt. Are you kidding me?" And he's like, "No, fuck off." And I was just like, "Yeah, screw you." I'd see that guy at clubs. I'd already seen him around the clubs and stuff. And I'd see him at all the Orange County and LA clubs.
Mm.
And, I was like, "Screw that guy." And so a number of months later, in March of 82, I guess it was, I went to go see Saxon at the Whiskey. And as me and my buddies are walking in the door, the opening band is going on. And I was like, "Hey, wait a minute. That's a motherfucker that wouldn't make me the Iron Maiden shirt. Fuck you." I was like, "Screw you." And turns out that was Metallica. And when I was telling James that, he was like, that was our second show, and I remember the music. I remember them being a kind of a cover band, like they did a lot of covers. I was like, these guys are actually doing covers that nobody else is kind of doing, so
It seems like a trend since there's no scene. You got these guys in Slayer doing mostly covers.
right. Yeah, hey, there it is, so yeah,
Oh, this is it.
that's it. Yeah, and I remember
1982,
Yeah.
Live at the Whiskey.
right.
Dave Mustaine and James just riffing. If you're just listening.
And I remember
Wow.
Dave doing the talking. I don't think James did much speaking that night. Yeah,
Wow.
but yeah, that was really fun. So there you go.
That's his second show ever, huh?
Right? And they look like adults to me, but look at them. They look like children.
Yeah. Now
So-
that looks like they're like literally like children.
right.
Crazy.
Yeah, man.
So, like the Dark Angel guys will probably tell you stories about him going to like high school.
Well, I
Going.
think I do remember Jim Durkin pulling out his high school yearbook, and there was the three guys from Dark Angel. There was Jim and Rob Yon, our bassist, and the original vocalist, and then I think the seniors page or maybe the juniors page. Yeah, there you go. That was the show,
Oh wow.
and
And what high school did the guys go
that
to?
was Downey High.
Downey High.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And so yeah, that was, and the next night was I remember going to the next night as well, and that was, or maybe it was the same night. Oh no, it was the next night. It was Rat, Rat and Saxon.
Oh
So,
shit.
yeah,
a freaking-
Downey High School, and I didn't go to Downey. I went to Milliken, but
Yeah. How far? So you're at this point you're still in Long Beach.
right,
Okay. How far is Long Beach from Downey? It's not. It's
10
not.
miles. Yeah,
Yeah. It's not. It's like right there.
It's all part of the same scene, and Slayer was from Southgate, which is right next to Downey, and there's Norwalk as well. So Long Beach, Norwalk, Southgate, Downey, Huntington Park, all that kind of area are all right in a little clumped up little area there. They're not too far from each other. So
Mm.
I remember Jim Durkin and Kerry King used to live around the corner, from each other kind of thing. So, and that was in Southgate area kind of thing. So.
Mm. Yeah. It's weird when you think about that particular genre. Like you really don't associate it with Southern California ever.
Indeed.
It's weird, huh?
I always do, but I have that kind of perspective. I
Sure.
do not see it as a San Francisco, as a
Bay
Bay
Area,
Area
yeah.
creation at all whatsoever, So the Bay Area always had like really heavy bands, and I remember Exodus was not quite the Exodus that they had evolved into by the Bonded by Blood era.
Mm.
They were a little more on the, very metallic side, but a little bit on the more melodic side, just slightly.
Mm.
And by the time they were starting to write the Bonded by Blood era material, that's when they were starting to get really, really heavy.
Mm.
And Slayer was going up there doing shows with them, and all
Mm.
all those shows at Ruthie's and things like that. So
At Ruthie's.
look at that classic right there. That's amazing. That's still one of the all-time classics.
So how did just so people listening and watching could understand your story, Gene?
Sure.
How did you really join Dark Angel?
In summer of 1984, they were getting rid of their drummer Jack Schwartz. They had just recorded their
Jack.
first album, and all of a sudden Jack was out, and then they ended up absorbing Lee Rausch from Megadeth, who had done all the first Megadeth shows, and Jim Durkin had spent a very brief portion of time in Megadeth, and so I'm sure it was just like, hey, you got me from Megadeth, and then you got Lee, so Lee was their drummer for a moment, and then for some reason they got Jack back for a minute, and then in December of 84, December 10th, 1984, was my first rehearsal with Dark Angel. That's when I joined, and so it was at obviously the end of 1984. Yeah, there's Jack Schwartz, all right. And we my first gig was 2 or 3 weeks later. It was on New Year's Eve, 1984, with Hyrax at the at
Hyrax.
Radio City. Yeah, so that's why our tour, which is starting very shortly from now, we have Dark Angels going on the road with Hyrax, and we played many shows back in the old days together, 84, 85, doing a ton of shows together. So that's pretty good. And so that's how I ended up joining. Like, I remember, Jim told me, because I was doing, like, I would do sound checks for Dave on the Slayer run. I'd just go up and play his drums, and we would jam tunes and things like that, just so Dave could. The drummer never gets to hear his own band.
Oh, yeah,
You
yeah.
never do. If you're a guitarist, you got your wireless. You could walk out there and kind of check it out, see how it
True.
sounds, or even the vocalist with a wireless mic.
That's true.
But yeah, so Dave was always like, "Yeah, sure, man, play my drums," and
You go,
so,
I want to go out and hear it.
exactly. So that's how he was able to do that. So, um,
Wow.
and Jim had called Carrie to say, "Hey, man, you've been doing some jamming with Gene. We're looking at Gene to play drums. What do you think?"
Yeah.
And Carrie was like, good drummer, whiny kid."
Oh.
Because I
Drummers, though.
I had no, man, I tell you,
Drummers are whining, dude.
well, that was the thing. Is like, my first tour was Slayer's first tour, the Haunting the West Coast tour. It was a very brief,
Yeah.
brief West Coast run, and my only exposure to any form of touring was reading all my favorite rock stars in Circus Magazine and Cream Magazine and Hit Parader Magazine when I was growing up. And to a person, when they would ask me, "Hey, what's touring life all about?" They're like, "It's really hard. You miss your home, you miss your
Yeah.
families, you miss this. It's really hard." And so
Yeah.
when I hit the road, I'm sitting there going, "This is so hard. God, I can't wait for this." Hey, there you go. That's really fun. Um,
Oh, wow.
yeah, that was
Is this the van you also traveled in?
you're right. Yeah, that was known as the Death Puke van. Oh, there it is, the Death Puke van in the back, and that is in the back, obscured by Kerry King. That is Doug Goodman, and you might have crossed paths with Doug Goodman at some point. Doug is a tour manager that has tour managed everybody from Green Day to Smashing Pumpkins. He went on to
Oh, wow.
major things here, and then
So he just kept at it.
he sure did. And this picture was taken at the Metallica fan club in
Oh, wow.
Roseburg, Oregon. The photo was taken by KJ Doughton, who ran the Metallica fan club, and we stayed there overnight. He gave us all a place to crash, sort of thing. So there you go. That was pretty fun.
Okay, so you joined the band, and then
All right.
and then what happens from there? And this is, I'm sorry, you've said 84.
84.
Okay.
They had December of 84. And they were just in the process of releasing We Have Arrived. That came out pretty quick because I had written some lyrics for We Have Arrived, but I did not play drums on it. So that album came out, and we did, a little bit of touring and stuff, just playing all the spot shows that you can, going up to the Bay Area or going out to Phoenix or Vegas or San Diego, or, we're just doing tons of shows and playing with a lot of the younger, the first era of thrash bands. We did tons of shows with Slayer, tons of shows with Megadeth, tons of shows with Possessed, and Death Angel would come down. We played shows with Corrosion of Conformity and Hyrax, and just a ton of bands. Abattoir, Agent Steel. These are all bands from that sort of era. But they've all gone to do something. Have some kind of impact. So that's where the LA scene, OG thrash metal, is from LA. Absolutely.
That's great to hear you talk about it, because I really haven't heard anyone talk about it.
Fair enough.
Yeah,
sure.
It's cool. It's always like the Bay Area.
Absolutely, and that's and it was understandable why Metallica moved up to the Bay Area, because at that point when Metallica was trying to make a name for themselves, LA didn't want to hear about it. Wasp was the heavy band in LA, and as you might be familiar with Wasp's first album, it's a good album, but it's not real savage or anything. It's on the heavier side of radio rock kind of thing. So That's where, you know, the Bay Area. Oh, the audience was just a much more open to the heavier side of things. You had bands like from Seattle, like Metal Church, who had also moved down to the Bay Area because Bay Area had a much more open scene for the heavier side of metal. So it was a natural move for Metallica to go to a place where it's like, hey, we could play gigs regularly and
Yeah.
not get laughed at or ignored kind of thing. So there you go.
Did you always have a memory like this? No one really says dates and years like
Yeah,
that.
maybe that is from, boy, that's late era. God, there's John Marshall from up in the top corner. He came along pretty late. He's very, very tall, and he also sat in for James Hetfield when James Hetfield broke his arm or burned himself
Oh,
or
the
something.
burn?
Yeah, that was their guitar tech who
Oh yeah.
who moved there. And that's where I never drank. I never did drugs. When I was
Really?
growing up. Yeah, not when I was growing up. So that's where
Oh.
I think I just always remembered this, and I always knew when when I was 11 on, especially like by the time I was 13, I was very entrenched in this life, like I was very intent on doing exactly what we're doing here.
Oh wow.
I knew when I was 11, and then like I said, that by the time I was 13, it was like, oh yeah, it's on. I'm going to be a rock metal drummer. I'm going to be touring the world and playing all over the place and doing all this stuff. So you better remember these kind of dates and important little
explains
historical
it.
things because somebody's going to ask you about these someday. And so this is all things like that visualization or manifestation, whatever sort of, you know, woo woo kind of words you might want to use. These are all things I guess I've been practicing my entire life. So I'm, I've, I've always seen my path. I've just, it was very clear to me,
It was clear.
growing up. Yeah. Like
Hmm.
this is my passion. Music is my passion. So, you know, you better get good at it if you want to, like have a life. And by getting good at it, meaning getting good at the lifestyle, getting good at the business aspect of things, like that would be one thing that when I was, when I was 13 and started going to all the clubs in LA, it was 1981, and I was going to see all the bands and hanging out with all the bands that became the big radio rock bands, all the LA hair metal scene.
Yeah.
I was seeing all those guys in the clubs, going to the parties with those guys afterwards.
Oh, wow.
I wasn't drinking or anything, but we would go to the parties and
Chilling.
hang out. And I was like such an observer. I was just a sponge to everything. Like you'd go see whatever band at the Whiskey or whatever, or the Woodstock down in Orange County. You'd go to their house party afterwards, and sometimes it's a Wednesday night, Thursday night, whatever. But you would see, like, say it's a 4-piece band or whatever. You'd see 3 of the guys keeping it together, but then there was always that one guy in the band that would just be, like drinking and just making a
Yeah.
complete idiot out of himself. And I was like,
I don't
you
want to
know
be that
what?
guy.
Well, I don't want to be that guy, but also I have a feeling that guy is not going to last very long in this band.
Wow.
And sure enough, a month or so later, it's like, oh, he just got too crazy, kicked him out, got a new guy. They sign a big old record contract. That band becomes huge without that guy who was acting a
You saw
fool.
that.
And I was just always a sponge
Huh.
absorbing that. So it's like, learn how to, kind of comport yourself, how to learn how to act when you're in social situations, because I was as socially awkward as anybody else was. I was
Sure.
a weird kid, but
But you're still there. You still wanted to be there.
exactly. And so it's like, just try to learn all you can, if you're going to make a real go at this industry, you better know how best to do it, So, you know, doing drugs and drinking and all that stuff. I was a young, sober guy, I was a very focused, sober dude during all the Dark Angel era and things like that. So,
Oh, that explains a lot.
right. So,
So even though you were reading articles in like Circus, like
mhm.
the Bosch Tree, you didn't let that influence you at all.
Like all the partying and things.
Yeah.
yeah, no, that just wasn't my scene, and
Hmm.
that was something that it was when I was growing up, my dad, Jerry, was very, very cool, and you know, my folks kind of saw that, wait, we got a pretty sharp kid here, and he tends to make some pretty good choices.
Oh
So
wow.
if he's going to go out, like I, my sister and myself, neither of us did drugs or drank or anything like that. So
Mm.
they both knew that we were pretty responsible in that regard. So if we are going to go out to the Roxy on a Thursday night, they knew that I was going to and go out to party with the band afterwards
Yeah,
at their
that's
place.
it's a hard sell.
I'm going to come home. I'm going to get to school and I'm still going to get decent grades. They were always
Oh
like,
wow.
as long as you just don't screw it up,
Don't
and
screw it up, dude.
and we'll give you free reign because I was a latchkey kid. A lot of kids from the 70s were. I raised myself in a lot of regards.
Mm.
My folks both worked, so they weren't around a lot, and so they were kind of seeing that this guy. We're not getting calls from the cops at like your son just got picked up for vague whatever.
Mm.
I wasn't on that end of the spectrum. So I got a lot of, I got a lot of free reign. Like as long as you just, we'll give you your freedom as long as you earn it. And so I just constantly earned the freedom. So I kept that rolling. So that's where I was able to have a life unlike, any other 13, 14, 15-year olds, So
Mm.
there you go.
It's awesome, man. It's cool that you had that focus.
Cool.
Explains a lot. You just started naming off dates. I'm like, what the hell is going on, dude?
Right.
It's awesome. So at what point did how did the gig with Death come up?
Well, wow, that's pretty ironic. Our tour starts on September 5th, and it was September 5th. I'm sorry to be a date guy.
Oh, dude, look, dude, please.
September 5th, 1992 was the day that we were rehearsing, and my vocalist, Ron Reinhardt, he came to rehearsal. He looked really glum, looked really sad. We're like, what's going on, bro? And he mentioned, laid it on us, said he had to quit not only the band, but quit the music industry. He wasn't quitting the
Mm.
band. He was just like, all this music industry is just getting to me. I
Yeah,
was
it
like, well,
happens, man.
that happens. So, it was kind of like a sort of a situation. Well, it took us a long time to discover Ron when we lost the original vocalist. We went through a
Mm.
couple of permutations of vocalists. And
Mm.
do we now, it took us 10 months to find Ron to begin with.
Oh,
And,
really?
and that was when, um, thrash metal it was still underground, but it was a lot more open to find a thrash metal vocalist when we first got Ron than it was here in 92 when death metal was the style for everybody. Nobody wanted to kind of sing thrash anymore. They just
Really?
wanted to go straight death metal
Oh,
by then.
wow.
So I was like, well, do we want to go death metal? We never quite have done that. So do we want to, spend a lot of months trying to find a new vocalist? Or tell you what, I went to the rest of the guys in the band and I said, hey guys, you know what? I think I'm going to step aside myself. If you guys want to carry on with Dark Angel, by all
Oh,
means,
wow.
like, please
Yeah.
do. Like, if you want to find a drummer that's going to write the material, write the lyrics, do all the, press, do all the
Yeah,
day-to-day.
yeah, because at this point you were doing most of the stuff. You were writing riffs, you were writing the lyrics, you were even playing guitar and some most
That's
of the
right.
stuff. Okay.
On a lot of the songs, yeah, and writing the majority of the music
Hey, did you?
yeah,
Sorry, Gene. Did you get that from Neil?
from
Neil
Neil.
from Rush.
Did he write music?
I found this out recently. Like he writes a lot of the music, like lyrics too.
I know the lyrics, but I never knew the music. I had no idea. I always knew the lyrics, and I don't
I
think.
didn't know he wrote lyrics. I'm like, he wrote those lyrics? Oh
Yeah,
shit!
I always knew that. The only reason I wrote lyrics for Dark Angel was I remember going to Jim and the other vocalist, and just I was in the band for like 3 months or so,
Mm.
and I was like, hey, this song, Burning of Sodom, it's a song that was on Darkness Ascends. I was like,
Yeah.
we play the song. I love this song. I'm really stoked on it. What are the lyrics?
But the lyrics kind of suck.
Well, no, I would just like, and they just kind of looked at each other and they just started kind of looked at the ground, started chuckling.
Oh wow.
And I'm like, wait, what? And why are you guys laughing?
Yeah.
And they're like, there aren't any lyrics.
Oh wow.
Or he was just up there. Oh
my goodness.
Doing the kind
Oh
of
my goodness.
the the John Tardy from Obituary sort of approach before John Tardy. Just there were no lyrics for it. And they said, well, hey, man, we know that you wrote lyrics in your other band. I was in a band called War God before, in upon joining Dark Angel. And they're like, we know you write lyrics for War God, so you want to write the lyrics to that song? I was like, yeah, sure. I was still in high school, so I just remember having, like, every Friday in my creative writing class was the poetry assignment. Every Friday you got to turn in a poem. So I'd write lyrics for Dark Angel, and then I would turn them. Here's the song, guys, and I would just turn in these lyrics to the poetry assignment every Friday or whatever. And my teacher was. He got it. He was cool with it, So, that's amazing. That's awesome. Looky there. That is really, really fun.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So, they're like, hey, so write some lyrics for us. So that's really how I started writing lyrics for Dark Angel, just because they knew I could and they knew I had. So that's where it started coming. And I was a young man with a vocabulary. So, I put that vocabulary towards the early lyrics. So
Okay, so
sorry
so-
to go off on tangents.
no,
on
please, no. This is the place to do it. So you chose to step aside because were they like trying to force you to do like some death metal stuff or what?
Well, the band wasn't, but it just seemed like every vocalist, death metal by this era of 1992, everybody was kind of going towards death metal. You were having the grindcore and all the bands, from Morbid Angel to Death to Obituary, Deicide, Cannibal was putting out stuff, and you had Napalm Death coming out with all their, their Barney era grind, and it understandably the music was leaning towards that, and so it was just going to be a real challenge to try to find a vocalist. So that's where I was like, guys, let me, please carry on, but I think I'm gonna just kind of see what else I could do because I always knew when I was playing in Dark Angel, I was like, this, I highly doubt this is going to be my only band.
Oh,
that I have.
really? You knew that then?
Yeah, totally. I was like, it's inevitable, like bands come and go, and you've had so many lineup changes already, like in my 8 years in Dark Angel, there was quite a number of lineup changes. I was a lineup change. So,
Yeah.
I'm just like, okay, if this isn't your final band, that's, there's no reason to be sad about it, but who knows where your future is going to lead you. So that's where I had just kind of decided to kind of take a step away and see what I could start doing. And I was in the process.
With no backup plan. You had no safety net.
No. Oh, no. There's never been a safety net. It's like there's music and that's it, So I had reached out to Borovoy Kurgan, from Blabbermouth, of course. And Borovoy was always a great, always had his finger on the pulse of what's happening. So I'd reached out to Borovoy. I said, hey, I'm putting together a new project, and can you help me find a vocalist? He's like, yeah. So he started sending me all these cassettes of I gave him sort of the general gist of the kind of vocalist I was sort of kind of looking for, and I guess probably a Pete Steele, early typo, slow, deep, and hard typo negative sort of approach. Pete Steele's carnivore approach was probably, it's like, I love that guy's vocals, so somebody like that. And not too long afterwards, he's like, hey, hey, Dick.
Yeah.
I was talking with Chuck, and Chuck had mentioned that he was looking for a drummer, and at that time there was the kind of the there was a little bit of, I guess, animosity in the press lingering over from 1989
Yeah.
between Chuck and, between Death and Dark Angel. And it was a bunch of things that should have never been brought out in the press, but it was. And so there was a little bit of lingering, that sort of thing as far as I knew. And I was like, well, he was like, I was talking to Chuck. He's looking for a drummer. You got brought up, and how about you give Chuck a call? See, do you guys just talk and see what's up? And I was like, interesting. Wow. Okay. Well, sure. Let's. I called up Chuck later that day, and it was like, because the last thing we had said to each other was a bunch of, FUs.
Yeah.
This conversation was like, we picked up the last cool conversation that we had ever had before, like talking metal, talking music,
Yeah.
talking, all cool stuff, talking instruments and bands and that sort of thing. And so we had decided very quickly to see what we could do about, just working together on what was going to eventually become the Individual Thought Patterns record. And so Chuck had agreed to send me, a riff tape. He's like, I got a tape of some riffs, send it out to you. I started referring to that tape as the adorable riff tape because it was adorable how he put it together. Like,
Really?
even in this was in late 1992, October, November 1992. Everybody had a 4-track or maybe an 8-track, whether it's a Fostex, a Tascam, a Roland, everybody had a little 4-track machine.
Yeah.
Chuck had 2 ghetto blasters and, boom boxes.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, 2 boom boxes. And, he had them set up across from each other. He would press record on that one, play guitar into that one, and then he would press play on that one and then play like the secondary guitar parts over into this other, boom box. And I just thought that was adorable. Most people had the rudimentary 4-track machines together, but he was going caveman old school on it.
Creative.
So that's how, or you could hear the little, the stop button, getting pressed, and then the start button getting pressed, and the stop button getting pressed, and all that kind of stuff.
Wow.
He sent that over to me, but it had enough. There was enough cohesion to it that I was able to just write a bunch of drum parts in my head and take them out to Florida pretty soon afterwards, and we started working on Individual Thought Patterns in earnest, and it came together pretty quick. We had about 3 weeks to work on it, and so there you go.
Was that recorded at Maury Sound?
It was.
Nice.
Yeah, man, with that one was with Scott Burns, and so my first time working with Scott Burns, and Scott's a great guy, and so that was, I was in there pretty quick, because we put the album together pretty quickly, and I tracked the drums, and I got out of there pretty quick, so they had to record the rest of it after I split. So there you go. Like, and hey, there you go. That's pretty fun. Oh, Scott. God, what a youngster back then.
Oh yeah.
And that was, we had Andy LaRock playing guitar on that. Andy LaRock from King Diamond. And as a matter of fact, I had never met Andy until 2013. People had asked me, "Hey man, you did that great, that great Death record back in '93 together. What's Andy LaRock like?" And I was like, I've never met the man, And so finally, 20 years after recording the record, I finally met Andy.
Oh,
So,
really?
Yeah,
That's crazy.
because he, I did my drums, I was out of there. He came in way afterwards just to lay some leads down. So it's not like we were working together or anything like that. The album came together with Chuck and myself. We even brought in Steve DiGiorgio relatively late into the project, because Steve had done the Human album, but then Scott started working with a man named Scott Carino. Chuck started working with Scott Carino, and then all of a sudden Scott wasn't working in the band, and then Stevie D was coming back in, which was great because I love Stevie D. So that's when Stevie D and I became real brothers. It was during that recording. So we got to become a real kick-ass rhythm section together. And Steve was saying that Steve had supplied me with well, it wasn't quite yet, but Steve was telling me that he was kind of brought in so late that I had tracked the drums. They brought in Steve. They gave Steve my drum tracks, like, go home with these, and just write your stuff. So Steve got to write directly to the drum tracks that I already laid down. So that's
Okay.
why his bass playing is next level on that. And he's like, well, I got to play exactly to what you were doing, and you
Oh,
already had
sick.
what you had established. So I was
Yeah.
able to really
That's rad.
go off on that. So that
That's
was,
rad.
a nice musical, point he got to make, because the bass lines on that album are fantastic. Totally. I remember reading a review of Yngwie Malmsteen reviewed like one of the songs on there,
Oh my goodness.
and he was like, this song is shit.
Of
Like,
course.
this bass playing's terrible. I was like, "Are you kidding me? This bass
He said
playing's
that?
great." Yeah, we were all laughing about it, but that was pretty fun.
It's kind of a stick though, right? It's just to talk shit on everything.
Oh, right? Yeah, I guess so.
Just fucking rip. Just fucking rip. I heard you talk a lot about the human record, Gene, and how important that drummer was.
Absolutely.
What exactly was it?
Well, Sean Reinert, rest his soul, was his approach to human was it was such a breath of fresh air at the time. Like,
Mm.
we were, all of us were into prog, and a lot of us were into jazz fusion, and we all loved Rush, and we all loved Watchtower from Austin, Texas. And Watchtower is this legendary band that they were the first. They are ground zero OG of melding hardcore prog with metal.
I
It's
know
like,
that. Okay.
yeah, they are the. Yeah, there you go.
Well, those outfits are sick.
No, right?
The,
Yeah, totally.
The singer is serious.
He's such a metalhead, man. Jason McMaster, man. He's a legend.
That's a name. Jason McMaster?
Yeah.
Oh, man, fuck everybody. That's a cool name.
Right. Yeah. I mean, he went on to, like, he sings for, he just sang for Accept. He just sang for
Mm.
Armored Saint. He was also in the band Dangerous Toys after that. But Jason's like total metal guy. And they are flat out the first, like, melding
Mm.
tech with Metallica, Motorhead sort of,
Yeah.
approach. And so we were all huge fans of Watchtower, and Sean's drumming just, for me, elevated the concepts of death metal, because death metal up until that point, there were a lot of badass drummers doing badass things, but they were all within the same sort of realm of what, whole lot of fast double bass, maybe some blast beats here and there, some grinding sort of here and there. It was all pretty metallic. And then Sean came in and let his influences show, and
Mm.
that was a real, it opened up a lot of avenues for
Okay.
a lot, especially for me coming into the next recording, where I was a huge Al Di Meola fan at that time, and also a huge Steve Gadd fan, drummer of Al Di Meola. So for me to have Human, following up on the heels of Human, where I could let a lot of the Steve Gadd influences show, or Neil Peart, or whoever, where I didn't have to be the standard typical sort of death metal approach of a drummer.
Oh, wow. Oh, yeah.
That's where, Sean had laid the template. And so Chuck was already used to a drummer kind of going a little bit kooky, as Chuck would refer to it,
Mm.
going nuts, going sick. Chuck was always very open to it. He was such an easy guy to work with in that regard, in terms of, he never put restrictions on the drumming. He sure as heck didn't with Sean. And Sean's
Mm.
drumming, on Human is beautifully next level for its approach. And so that was having that template already laid, made the drumming for individual thought patterns really open up and be very musical, and try to be as creative as I could.
Yeah, well, what a template, man. I was always curious because, most of us has never met him. So like I was always wondering, like, what, man, what was Chuck like? Because people I just keep seeing his name, and then people keep talking about death and him. I was always, and only you got to live it, like actually write important records
Oh,
that
right.
are just staples now.
Excellent. Well, that's pretty cool. Um, that Chuck was from a musical standpoint, Chuck, we all had the same sort of influences. We all loved all the early metal, all the underground metal, and Chuck was a metalhead, through and
Mm,
through. So, um, we all liked the same sort of classic rock kind of stuff. We were all
mm.
Kiss fans, and we all dug, the Aerosmith and Ted Nugent and Cheap Trick and all the things that we all dug, all the Maidens and Priests and Sabbaths and Rainbow and Dio and all these guys. We were all into it, so it was really easy working with Chuck. That looks like that's around the Individual Thought Patterns era,
Oh wow.
perhaps. It's one of the album that we did together, and yeah, so he was really easy to work with. He wasn't, he would. People always wondered, well, was Chuck a tyrant to work with? Musically, not at all. He was really open, and I would always stop from time to time and say, "Hey, man, all these crazy drums I'm laying down. Are you cool with these?" Like,
Yeah.
yeah, man, I can play all my riffs over what you're doing.
Interesting.
I'm working well with what you're giving me, and it's all fine. So go sick, go nuts. He used to like to say that, and you do you. There's a reason we are working together. So
Oh yeah.
just you keep doing you, and this is working out good for me. So that was pretty cool. Totally.
Mm. Yeah, I heard that that was your first time really like becoming a drummer.
Indeed. Yeah, kind of like as far as I felt, like I guess when it was coming to Dark Angel, I was kind of treating the drums as a secondary instrument,
Yeah.
because I was doing most of the guitar writing. And at that time, I wasn't focusing on the fact that, like, one thing I tried to do with Individual Thought Patterns was I was trying to come up with beats nobody had ever heard before.
Mm.
I tried that with Individual and later with Symbolic. And then I started realizing it's like, well, actually, you were also trying to do that with Dark Angel at the time as well, which, like, for instance, this is something that even Sean Reinert had pointed out to me years and years later. He's like, when I heard Darkness Descends and I heard all the bass drum patterns
The patterns.
that you were writing, I had never heard patterns before from a drummer. And you
Mm.
were the first person, as far as I know, like I did a deep dive on this. I can't find anybody doing patterns the way that you did with these. And I was like, I wasn't even thinking about that really at the time.
That's a
That
six stamp.
right. And
Wow.
one thing I did try to do was the patterns that I could write on my feet,
Mm-hmm.
I would emulate those on the guitar riffs.
Mm.
So putting together I guess the machine gun, diddly-lint, diddly-lint, dun, diddly-lint, 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 dun, diddly-lint, I was putting that sort of approach together because I was like, I've never heard anybody try this before, where you're
Mm.
doing these weirdo double bass
Sure.
patterns with a weirdo riff emulating it, because back in
Yeah.
those days, usually the double bass would emulate the riff if the riff was going dugga 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 diddle 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 dugga dugga dugga. That's the only thing that the double bass would emulate, was just
Mm.
a pretty straight rhythmic pattern. And so, I would be on my toilet in my apartment writing these. I had a good wood floor on
Hell
on
yeah.
my toilet. I read these patterns on my toilet, and I was like, I'd jump right off. I'd go grab the guitar, and I would write the chunky guitar riff over the top of that. I'm like, I've never heard anybody do this before. Maybe this could be Dark Angel's little, hey, here's our style. Here's something that we're going to try to bring to the table, because I'd never heard anybody doing that before. And
That's rad.
I've had so many folks come up to me and saying, you guys were the first guys I ever heard trying to do that. Then that's where we got our little approach of trying that, from. I was like, oh, there you go. You're always trying to leave something behind, musically. And so that was
Mm.
like one of Dark Angel's little approaches that we were able to help, bring about, I suppose, and then leave that behind. And now it's pretty much a metallic staple,
Yeah.
having guitar chunks going with double basses.
It's everywhere.
Yeah, it's everywhere now. But at that time, it was like, no, nobody's doing this. Let us try this.
Yeah.
So there you go.
It's like I don't hear it. I'm just gonna do it.
And so that's where I was able to utilize a lot of those pattern type things with the individual thought patterns record, just trying to. Chuck would write a riff that I was like, oh, we'll just write a drum pattern. Do a double bass pattern that just follows that instead of just.
What an inspiring time.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
dope. What are your first thoughts and memories, Gene, of Symbolic? Because again, like you were there, I wasn't there.
Right.
How was it? What memories do you have?
Of Symbolic?
Yes.
We had a lot more time to put that one together because individual thought patterns was, the clock, the deadline clock was ticking for Chuck to.
Fucking 3 weeks, you're like, oh shit.
Yeah, turn in a release. He's like, I didn't expect to be this far without having a release ready to go. I've got the songs written, but I don't have musicians, so we were able to get that thing together pretty darn quick. And with Symbolic, we had a lot more time to flesh out the songs, and so I spent a lot of time out in Florida, living with Chuck, and
Oh wow.
every morning we'd rehearse. Every day we'd rehearse. Get up, have some breakfast, and then get right to the
Oh wow. Let's
right
get
to
up,
the garage.
wake up, have breakfast, boom, we're fucking jamming.
In his garage, yeah, absolutely. So we got a lot of time to work out a lot of stuff, and by this time, I remember Scott Burns had bought us a 4-track for the individual thought patterns rehearsal sessions, and we put that to use. And now Chuck was getting a little bit more into the actual recording side of things, so he had he bought an 8-track. So, and back in those days, you couldn't really get a good drum sound, and we didn't have great mics or anything,
Sure.
so you couldn't really get a real good drum sound on home recordings. Obviously not like today with the Pro Tools and the sound replacements and the drum programming and all that kind of stuff. That didn't really exist at the time. So what we would do is, like, each day we would work on whatever amount of whatever song we're working on. We'd get that to a point, and we'd get to at the point where we'd have the entire song done. We would work on it for a little while. We had a lot of time to work on this. So when we finally had all of our parts together, I had an Alesis HR16 drum machine, which is this big old giant, about, you'll probably see it here in a couple seconds. I love Jerry's work here, man. You're amazing. Oh, look at that. It's that big gray thing right there. Yeah, that big old giant gray jobber right there in the middle. There you go.
Oh, that thing's ugly.
But that thing was beautiful. And that thing was, at the time, it was so next level, and I got really, really good at programming one.
Oh,
of
really?
those. Oh, yeah, I was amazing at that thing. I could turn that thing into a human sounding, feel.
It's like a typewriter.
This thing it was the first drum machine that didn't sound like an electronic drum kick with the bing, 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 bing kind of things. This thing actually had sort of real tones inside it. And so, but I would, at the end of the day, all the drum patterns that I would write, I was pretty good at being able to write them on that thing. So, I got pretty proficient at that thing. So I know that on the re-release of Symbolic, there are 3 or 4 demo tracks that we put down.
Yeah.
That we did on that drum machine.
Oh,
So
really?
there is an example.
Oh,
yeah, there is an example of that drum machine being used in a number of the songs, like the title track, and then
Symbolic is one of them, but it says Symbolic
Acts.
Yes. Okay.
That was Chuck's original title.
Okay.
And so I was the one that told him, what if you just drop the word acts from that?
Dang,
he was like,
boom.
Symbolic. Yeah, that's pretty cool. I like that. Yeah, so there you go. And then I did the exact same approach with Testament like 2 years later when they had, what was it? They wanted to call their album Demonic Refusal.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, what if you just dropped the refusal and just made it demonic? They're like, hey, great.
Boom.
Excellent. So I was like, I'm really good with my editing skills have created a couple of album titles for you there. So yeah, that was the same thing. Oh, we're gonna call our album Demonic Refusal. I was like,
Oh wow.
why not just use the symbolic approach?
Just make it more simple. It's you were a good like outside like perspective looking in on stuff.
Right.
You
Yeah.
know?
I'm a decent uh, you know, third wheel in that regard, come in and help kind of. I can look at your idea and go, hey, why don't you try this? Hey, that's a pretty good idea. I'm not too shabby at that either. So
Mm.
there you go.
And during this whole time, you're still not drinking. You're still not.
Well, at that time, let me see. Yeah, I had started, and Chuck was a connoisseur of the herb, so he was really into that, and I wasn't quite super into that. So, at the end of the days, I have like cocktail at the end of the day or whatever,
Okay.
and Chuck would fire it up for himself, and I became a pot smoker for a while in the death era, totally.
Yeah.
But these days I haven't touched pot in a number of years, haven't drunk in a decade and a half, and
Oh, congrats.
I quit smoking, all that. I'm pretty much a teetotaler now, like not by design, it just kind of happened that way. But
Full circle.
yeah, right. Yeah, God, full circle. That's what my wife Laura says. She's like, you're the same kid that you were in Dark Angel when you started, and like
Oh,
that
wow.
makes sense. Yeah, right.
When did you get married?
Oh, that would be like 2011 essentially. Yeah, 2008, but
Okay.
we became a couple in late 2008, and I was married from day one in that regard,
Yeah.
totally.
You
But
knew?
oh, absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
totally.
You,
Like
you just know.
I got my metal chick writes better riffs than I ever will, plays guitar better than I ever will, that kind of thing. So that's pretty badass having, your wife being a badass musician. I'm really, really fortunate, and she's a walking aphrodisiac for me. So I've got the best of all worlds in that regard. But there you go. Um,
It's beautiful, man.
Thank you.
That's cool.
And just, but to step back to that Symbolic era, when we tracked that album, um, when we released the album, like I remember tracking it, I remember I couldn't walk. Yeah,
What?
I couldn't walk while recording Symbolic, like the actual recording. I threw my back out the day before the recording.
No.
Yeah, I couldn't walk. I couldn't even like sit comfortably. Like I would.
Oh no. What a
I
nightmare.
The only thing I could do was play the drums, and so when I was done tracking whatever song, I'd finish the song. Chuck and my tech at the time, Steve Good, they would kind of pick me up and lift me up and help carry me to the couch, and I'd be sitting in this like just totally crazy angle because I couldn't. And I was like, "Is this take good? Is it good? Okay, let's get back out there and do next song." Oh God, I was only like 27 at the time. Oh, I remember it was my 28th birthday is when we started recording Symbolic. I remember that. So
Oh, that's good luck.
all right, and I couldn't, like I said, I couldn't walk, but I could play drums. So that was one thing I remember from the recording session was
It was like you. It's like you just could just sit in one area, and then
Yes.
and then it felt all right.
right. And
Huh.
anytime I'd ever thrown my back out since then, that's one thing I do know that I can do. I've tossed it out on tour where I can't walk, I can't move, but I could play the shows. So there you go. It takes me an hour to walk to the stage, but once I get there, I can do my thing. But I haven't had that happen in a long time. But that was really strange recording a record when you couldn't even move.
Yeah. How did you throw out your back?
I learned later it was just stress. Because I had gone to a back expert up in Seattle. They did the MRIs and the CAT scans and the X-rays and all that sort of. Because I was like, oh, I know I have a slipped disc. I've got a herniated disc. I've got something serious going on. And the doctor, you could tell he had to have this conversation many times.
Oh.
Where he was like, yeah, what sort of stress do you have going on in your life? Do you have some stress going on? I was like, well, as a matter of fact, I do. He's like, well, long story short, you figure out whatever your stress is. You get a little solution to whatever this thing that is stressing you out. Is it financial? Is it this? I was like,
Really?
oh, yeah, it's all that. And he was like, well, you figure out your solution, because I was in transitions from death to whatever the next thing was going to be, and I was stressed out about a lot of stuff. And once I figured out whatever my next plan was going to be, he's like, once you do figure it out, your back problems are going to disappear. And he was 100% correct. I had gone, like I said, this was in Seattle. Um, I went. I was staying with my folks up there at the time. I went to their place. Yeah, I was lying in their bed and bedroom. I'm in my bedroom at their place or whatever. I figured out my issues, and sure enough, the next day my back problems were gone. So that's where it's like now I realize anytime I ever do throw out my back or I got some sort of thing going on, it's like it's just stress. Sure, life is stressful. You get
Sure.
um, and that's one thing I have always tried to be very cognizant of is that my life is very, very easy. I've got no problems in life. Like I I have a very cakey, easy life no matter what. We play music for a living. We play gigs. I
Yeah.
play for a living. I don't work. None of this is like really work. So
Yeah.
especially in relation to like some guy who's out there grinding and out working for his family, like putting in, doing roofing or, being a car mechanic or something, somebody manual labor where they got to grind it out for a living to put food on their tables. I have a very easy life in comparison to that. So I have always got to keep that in mind,
Hmm.
that, no
Yeah.
matter how tough you think this is, Gene, you do not have it this tough. So always remember that. And I
Yeah.
do. So that's how I'm able to really manage anything like that. So, had I known that around the death era, I wouldn't have had the problems of not being able to walk while tracking the record. But we got that thing done, and when we released it, if Symbolic is a classic record now, it was not at all received that way in any way, shape, or
Oh,
form.
really?
No, it was hated,
Are you serious?
hated,
I
absolutely
didn't know
hated.
that.
100% hate. The only people who didn't hate it were some of the um, journalists who reviewed it, but like the fans hated it. Like everybody
the
hated it
hell?
because they were like, "What the hell did you do to my favorite band?" Like where's Scream Bloody Gore? Where's Leprosy? Where's Spiritual Healing? Like this is musical bullshit. What is it? Melodic. What is this? The world wasn't ready. They weren't used to it. They were used to hearing their death metal really, really brutal and not melodic. And so that is one thing that I will give Death, Chuck, whoever was involved in it. Like it's one thing if you're involved in a musical genre that is accepted and you come in and you play a popular style of music and you do it well. That's one thing. Chuck, although he did not invent death metal, Death was a very important band in the overall creation of death metal. So brutal death metal, Chuck and Death were a part of its infancy. Then when it came to technical metal, there were a couple other bands like Watchtower and that sort of thing. Cynic was kind of doing their thing a little bit in the demo era sort of thing. Watchtower, maybe Meshuggah to some slight degree, maybe by 91, 90 when they were tracking Human. Human came out and, there was Atheist doing some technical stuff. Other bands that were doing, Mekong Delta, on the more technical side of metal. But Death had a real stamp on the technical metal side. That's two genres that they had an important part of
Yeah.
being a part of. And then along comes the melodic death metal, melodic death metal, or whatever. Death had a real part with the individual thought patterns and the Symbolic releases. Both of those albums had an impact on the melodic side of death metal. There wasn't a lot of melodic death metal going on at the time. There was sort of Carcass was just starting to lean towards that with the Heartwork record. Leaning away from this just straight blasting grind and
Yeah.
and their maybe it was whatever their EP was directly before that, they were starting to kind of lean towards the more melodic side, letting their classic rock influences show. But there you go. Those are three genres that Death had. You know, like I said, it's one thing if you join a genre that is established, and yeah, you do some cool things, and your band gets popular doing it. That's one thing. But to help be the creators of three different genres, there's something to be said for that. So way to go, Chuck. Way to go, Death. Absolutely.
It's so mind blowing that it was what's known now to be like one of the most influential.
It was
it's hated.
Did not appear to be that way at all.
Did you think, oh shit, like, oh man, did we fuck up? Did we?
Well, no, I liked the record. I liked what we did on it, and so that's one thing. I've never been able to get too caught up in what others think of whatever your creativity is, whatever
Sure.
your musical approach is. I had already been hated with Dark Angel, you know, like
Oh,
when there was no thrash metal scene, and when I'm in high school and I'm playing in my high school band, Dark Angel, this is the Dark Angel, this one
Yeah.
now, you know, because I was a 12th grader when I was in Dark Angel, and Motley Crue and Quiet Riot and Rat and all those hair metal bands were, you know, all that rock stuff. All the quote unquote rockers at my school, they hated Dark Angel. They were like, your music is just noise. That Metallica band, you guys are just noisy garbage. All that stuff is just punk rock garbage. None of your bands will ever, these bands that you like, they'll never go anywhere. And I'm like, you just wait and just watch. And, you know, so I'd already been hated, you know, like they called Dark Angel Slayer clones when we were releasing Darkness Descent or
shit,
whatever.
really?
They called me a Dave Lombardo clone.
Oh
and
my goodness.
all that kind of stuff. And I got that. So I'm like, I'm already used to being hated. It's okay. And that's when I realized very young, the only way you could be truly loved is if you are truly hated. Because when I was
100%.
growing up and I was hanging out with a band called Dante Fox, and they became Great White. And those guys were my pals. You know, they were all a little older than I was, but they would, you know, come to my house and all that sort of stuff. Back when Great White was just another rock band, you know, this is pre that era.
Wow.
They were getting played on the radio. This was pre that era. This was all before that. This is their blues era. But when they were a metal band, they weren't, you know, you would ask people, hey, what do you think of Motley Crue? I love Motley Crue. Or I hate Motley Crue. What do you think of Quiet Riot? I love Quiet Riot. I hate Quiet Riot. What do you think of Great White? No, they're okay.
Oh shit.
They're okay. You know, and so it was just, that's when I started realizing it's like, yeah, because they were just okay. They were a good band. They weren't polarizing, you know. They became the blues rock band and became huge after that. But I realized that if you are not polarizing, then people don't have a lot to, you know, you're just going to be, you know, yeah, they're okay. You know, what do you think of the band Autograph? You know, no, they're okay. You know, nothing exciting, nothing terrible about it. They're fine. Never really did anything. So there you go. That's when I realized really young that it's okay to be hated. It's okay. You know, it's okay to be loved. It's okay to be hated, you know, and as long as I'm doing what makes me feel the best, then that's the only thing I can do, you know. And that's one thing that Chuck always felt, you know. Chuck was never afraid to, you know, so many people were hating on Chuck, so many people were hating on Death and all that, and Chuck did not care. You know, he wrote music for Chuck, and so I'm like, you and I are both very there you go. Oh, that is a different. Oh no, that is. Look at Don Costa there. My word, Don Costa he joined Wasp, and then he was in Ozzy for a minute, and then Tony Richard. That guy was the first drummer for Wasp. You'll recognize him from the Wasp era. He was their drummer for the first few records, but that is some old ass Dante Fox there. That's from 1980. That one.
Ooh.
Now I started seeing them in '81. So
81. Oh my goodness.
yeah, I was 13 at the time. So there you go. But and being true to yourself, you know, you got to write what you feel. You can't write
100%.
You can't
You
write
have
for the
to.
fans. You guys went through that. You guys put out a record that sometimes, some of the fans were kind of like scratching their heads going,
Yeah.
what were you guys think? But you felt strongly about it. You wanted to do that, and you
Yeah.
stood behind it.
You got to stand behind it.
Absolutely.
They call it staying on business these days.
Taking that risk is always important.
Mhm.
Like it's okay. It's okay to jump off the ledge. It's okay to
Yeah.
be hated. And that's, Chuck felt that. And I've always felt that. So, that's why when it comes to like this latest release with Dark Angel, if people love it, killer, great. If people don't like it, killer, great. It's not going to affect me one iota. It will not change my approach to writing at all, So, the only thing we ever ask is, the only thing I would ask is just, hey, check it out. Just listen to it before you make any decision on it. That's all you can ask with anybody, really. Just give it a listen. Give it 10 minutes. If you don't like it after 10 minutes, then okay. There you go.
Yeah. People got to listen to the record, man. But I found that when you take a risk, it pays off. You don't know when you don't know when the payoff is.
That makes sense.
Like the risk will pay off, but you don't know when. It could be a year, it could be instant, it could be 10 years. Who knows?
Right. Yeah, I totally get that.
Yeah. What you learn is like, okay, you have another arsenal in your toolbox.
Absolutely.
So this comes out on Monday. When are you guys dropping the new record?
September 5th is the worldwide digital release anyway, and I know
Okay.
we've got the hard copies coming.
Okay. Cool.
So we're really excited for that.
Nice.
And I'm really excited about this new record. It's been 34 years since our last album, and just we have a couple of records that a couple that have had an impact on some folks, like Darkness Descends.
Mm-hmm.
My first album, the band's second album, that's had its influence and impact on extreme metal.
Mm-hmm.
And we have another album called Time Does Not Heal, which has had its also impact on elements of metal.
Mm.
And a lot of people were asking me when I announced that, hey, we're going to start, we're writing, we're going to have a new album out at some point. That immediately got the questions of, well, what's it going to sound like? Is it going to sound like Darkness Descends? Is it going to sound like Time Does Not Heal? And, I just thought, boy, we haven't even written anything other than just a number of riffs and maybe half a song so far kind of thing. But, what approach do I want to take with this? And I just thought, well, probably the best approach to take with the writing is, what if Dark Angel just never stopped putting out records for 34 years? What would it be like? Where would we be at now if
Mm-hmm.
we just didn't worry about trying to sound like one album, trying to sound like another album, take the energies
work.
from both albums. I don't want to repeat.
Yeah.
Dark Angels never repeated an album, so why would I do that now? So really about the only thing that we can do is, what would we write here in 2025? What kind of music should we be putting out in 2025? Dark Angel music, definitely. Is it a copy of anything we've ever done? No. But does it sound like Dark Angel? Absolutely. None of our albums have ever sounded alike. I'm not sure how familiar anybody is with, deep dives on any Dark Angel record, but no two albums have ever sounded alike. So this one doesn't sound like like any other Dark Angel record. So, and in that regard, then cool. We're staying true to our own vision in terms of, trying to evolve from album to album. And it took 34 years from albums for the last evolution to this. But, I'm really excited about the record. I'm super stoked with it. I'm very proud of every single song on here. So
Great.
any single song is, you could check it out and go, damn, killer. Good representation.
Awesome, man. Yeah, you've lived a hell of a life, Gene. Yeah, you've always seemed to always had your own vision, always just played what you wanted to play. It's
Oh,
cool.
thank you.
It's
Awesome.
cool, man. How do you feel about the artwork now?
I love the artwork. I love it. I'm a huge fan of it. And
Okay.
my management, like my management has been telling me that people have been crabbing about the artwork because there's AI involved.
Okay.
There's AI elements involved, but 3 years ago I got together with my artist Kane Gillis and said, create something awesome. I don't care how you do it. Take whatever approaches you like. And so, are there AI elements? Yes, there are, but he also has done a ton of painting to each artwork. And that's one thing I'm stoked about is that on our deluxe editions, we have artwork that is for each panel of each song, we have its own dedicated artwork.
Oh, nice.
And so somebody was telling me really recently that they're like, dude, bands just don't do that, where you
Yeah.
got, it's like you got some cool artwork that, just kind of littered throughout your record, but each panel has its own like living artwork to itself. And so there you go. I love our artwork because it's just like, it looks kick ass to me. And
Yeah.
I know how much work Kane put involved. And, Kane said there was over, what was it, 20,000 man hours? No, 2,000 hours that he's put into this, where he did a lot of CGI painting to things. There's photography elements involved in all of this. And there was a ton of work. I believe that from what I've heard from my management is that people want to say that, like maybe we were too cheap to hire an artist. That's incorrect. That, I'm not sure necessarily how AI works for people, but all I know is that this was not a simple or easy process. This was not like you type in a little sentence and then out comes this beautiful piece of artwork.
Yeah.
Nothing. Like, it wasn't that simple at all. And so that's why, I don't tell other people how to run their biz. I don't tell people
Yeah.
how to, especially if I don't know how it works. I
Sure.
can't tell the guy that puts a roof on or does HVAC or, it puts in heating systems or plumbing systems. I can't tell that guy how to do his job because I don't know anything about it. So I can't tell him, I won't profess to know anything about it. And, if there are some people that don't like something we do, hey, there's my shirt. I'm wearing that shirt right here. Kick ass. Look at that. This is my first time seeing any of this, man. That's
Hell yeah.
badass. Yeah, I don't see a lot of this stuff. I don't pay attention to social media though. I don't.
No?
Not at all.
Better
I'm
off that way.
that is
Keep it
what
that way.
I am told. That's what everybody to a person says. Like, you're way better off not being involved. I'm fascinated with those who have the time to devote to it. Way to go. If you got time to take a picture of your, meatloaf that you just made or whatever and put it online or whatever, I'm out there living the life. I don't necessarily, have the time to document it.
Yeah.
I know I should have probably filmed some, like earlier I was with, I should be filming this. I should be taking pictures here. I'd be showing this and all that kind of stuff. I don't,
Yeah.
my management says, hey, get content. And I'm like, yeah, sure. No problem. And, once every 2 or 3 weeks, I'll take a picture of, here's me and, me and one of my buddies. Here's me and Paul from, Kerry King. Here's Paul Bostaff. Here's a picture.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. I don't do it enough. But, if somebody wants, feel free to attack me all you want. Attack Dark Angel all you want. It, truly loved, truly hated. I'm okay with either. It doesn't affect me. So, if people, hey, the argument could be made is these are the same people that, they stole my livelihood 25 years ago when they started streaming and stealing music and making, music be for free. I mean, I wasn't out there complaining when it's like, hey,
Yeah.
wait, we albums cost,
A lot, thousands and thousands of dollars.
tens of thousands of dollars, tens of thousands, 6 figures to make records, even at this
while you're broke.
small, yeah, and nobody seems to care about that. So why am I gonna? I mean, I'm just understanding how it is. I would listen to somebody who wants to virtue signal on
It's
what I
tough,
should be
dude.
doing, and that's why I I love our artwork. I love it. Like I said, I told Kane, come up with it however you need to come up with it, and
Mm.
he took 3 years to do it of hard work. So
Beautiful.
if anybody wants to tell me anything otherwise, feel free. Is that going to affect any of my future decisions? I don't believe so. My
No,
management and I might butt heads on certain things when it
of
comes
course.
to that sort of thing, but I have my vision, and I love everything about it. Like, look at that artwork. That's some kick-ass T-shirts. It makes for killer shirts. So I'm excited.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to because you're just doing what you've always done, and that's what originally makes people a fan of you. And then when you keep doing the thing that you always done, people say, "Well, I don't like that." It's like, so well, you were a fan of this. I'm just doing the same thing. You're a fan of me because I'm just me. And then
Right.
so what is this? No one really knows where it starts and where it ends.
With that in mind, it's okay. For me, it all starts and ends right here. And so whatever I feel strongly about and whatever I don't feel strongly about,
Hmm.
that is only this is going to affect what goes into the music, the artwork, the songs, the
Mm.
shows, the everything, the whole approach. It all comes from here, from me. And I've since I did have a start unlike anybody else that I know.
Yeah.
I've got a vision, and I've had a vision that I have had. I'm 57 years old now, so I've had this vision for 44 years, and
Wow.
it's it's never stopped. It will never alter. It will always be this vision. The only people I will listen to are my close knit, my guys in the band,
Hmm.
the management to a large degree. A lot of times we'll butt heads on things, and
Yeah,
we will
butt
go
heads.
and go and go. And it's like, I just watch my vision. I have the vision. It's okay. And sometimes my management will be like, shut up. We're doing it this way. I'm like, okay, I'm willing to work in that regard. So,
Hmm.
um, that's where it goes. And um, we're all cockroaches. We're all going to survive. All of us musicians, we all know
Yeah,
how to work our way.
it's true.
You 25 years ago, you took our livelihood away. I'm to the point where, 25 years ago, what was I? I was 30 years old, 32 years old. I'm like,
Mm.
ooh, we're starting to sell some records here with whatever band I'm in, where I'm going to be like, oh, I get to make a little bit of money on this. And that's going to be nice because I never, shoot, you make money however you can. It's like, nope, that's gone in an instant. The Napster, the streaming, the
Mm.
all that took that away. I didn't complain. I didn't say anything. I'm like, okay, well, I'll figure out a way to work it around this way,
Yeah.
And as you know, being in a band, people are just like, well, go out and sell merch then. It's like, well, you do understand that, merch is pretty expensive to create. It's not like, how come you guys sell your merch for this much money? It's like, because we are kind of forced to, like
Hmm.
to try to cover costs and recoup and things like that. That's why, that's one thing that since I've had to become a band owner, for so many years, I was I was just a drummer in a band, like whatever
Yeah.
band I was playing with, I'm just a guy in a band. So now that I am looking over contracts and things like that. And 25 years ago, I was in interviews, I was talking about, hey, the every club that you play, they take 20 to 30% of your merch. And that is wrong. That
Wow.
so if you're a club and you're going to take 20% of my band's merch, I want 20% of your bar. That's what I've been saying that for years and years and years. So just, 4 or 5 years ago, Live Nation has come across with like, we're going to rescind that 20%. As you might know, you play some
Hmm.
venues that don't take that percentage of merch. These days, boy, I will tell any one of my friends or my colleagues in any band, read your gig contracts. Get
Mm.
to know your gig contracts. I never saw a gig contract ever, and I've been in this industry forever. Up until just a few years ago, I call it the left side of the page. Take a look at your gig contracts. Like just every person in a band that's out there playing and making money or getting paid money, take a look at your gig contracts and see how much money you do not make. Like,
Yeah.
there is so much that, like, take a look at the left side of the contract. Like it is mind-boggling how much money every band loses. Like if you are charged, like if you're that's a $50 concert ticket, as a band, you are making this much of it. But there is somebody making a whole lot of money off that, and it's all there in the contract. How little money the band is making, but how much money the promoter is making. All these mystery charges that happen. Like I say, they're all there in the contract. Like
Mystery charges. Yeah.
ASCAP charges, BMI charges. You could play a show in Dallas, Texas, and the BMI ASCAP charges, publishing charges, $2,500. You can go an hour and a half south, go to San Antonio, and those BMI ASCAP charges are $50. Like I can understand if what the heck is a BMI ASCAP charge in the first place? But I could see if it's a statewide thing, or it's like, okay, it's going to charge $2,500 in Houston, it's going to charge $2,500 in Austin, it's going to charge $2,500 in Dallas. They're just random, and that's where our band's getting soaked in other ways that they have no idea about. Absolutely. So now I'm to the point now, it's like, take my 20%, take it, give me all that stuff on the left side of the contract, all those crazy ass mystery charges.
Yeah.
You're going to charge us $1,000 fee to put up the barrier in front of the club. In front of the stage, that you pull the barrier out of the corner there's a typical nonsensical charge, that kind of thing. I'm sure there'll be club owners and promoters and all that stuff that will take me to task for it. But that's all I'm saying, man. All of my friends in the industry, you're going to be like, yeah, keep my 20%. Keep it. It's okay. Take it. Give me all that multiple thousands of dollars on the left side of the contract, Yeah, so there you go. That's one thing I've learned. I used to be a drummer. Now I'm going to be this business owner and business person, and all these elements that I never expected to be involved in that are very eye-opening, very. And I only have my eyes open because I happen to, how often do band members get to see the actual gig contracts?
Yeah, you have to ask for it. Yeah, you kind of have to pull teeth.
Right.
Actually, can I see it? Yeah.
Yeah. It's not something that somebody's going, oh, by the way, Criss, here, this is tonight's contract. Nobody's ever going to tell you that. I just happen to see them because I'm the owner. I have to see these things.
Yeah.
And, it is nuts. So, yeah, keep your 20%. Give me the rest. Then we're talking.
Yeah. Yeah. It's good that you've been doing that. I'm 39 now. I didn't read my first contract until I was 35. So
right.
I'm only, I guess you could say, I've only been in this for like 4 years.
Indeed.
Technically, I'm a whole other person now, and so it took years to get out of that. Oh, I'm just a this person.
Right.
Because you're like, you just want to do this, but in order to do this, you need to become this other. I'm an other person now.
Then you understand.
Yeah.
You did not expect this.
It's been tough. I learned 20% is a way different than 30% and 5% here, 2% there. That if all those little percentages add up, that's a lot of money.
Absolutely, and
So,
that's
I learned the hard way.
and that is one reason why I have I'm not very inclined to listen to somebody who has no idea what you have to go through, what I have to go through.
Sure.
Want to comment on what they think is reality. You don't know reality. You don't understand. So that's why I can't really, I can't tell you how to coach your football team.
Yeah.
You can't tell me how to coach mine,
You fucking suck, dude.
Right.
All right. So, Gene, I heard a story, and this is either going to be a great story or it could bomb. But so I was looking at the timeline. I was trying to line up the stories someone told me. I heard that I want to say mid-90s, you were practicing drums in Garden Grove. You were, I think, you were practicing in boots and weights on your ankles.
I still do, yeah.
And, okay, cool. And so did you have a spot in Garden Grove?
Is that Garden? Yeah, it was Stanton. No, not Stanton, but yeah, right over there.
Because it was
DC
during
Spark Studio, backstage studio. Yeah,
that might have been it. Because Korn was writing "Life Is Peachy,"
right.
and they them and I guess Ross Robinson's actually where I got the story from. He mentioned that they would see you practicing at a time where double bass wasn't exactly popular in that specific time,
Right.
and then they said how much they respected you for still putting in that work, even though it wasn't exactly like the thing to do
Very nice.
at that moment. Is that true?
Well, indeed, it is. Yeah, they were doing Life Is Peachy there, and Ross and I, we played many shows together back in the day when he was in a band called Détente,
Détente, yeah.
and then after Détente, he was in this great band called Catalepsy. There has since been another Catalepsy, but I searched out Ross's Catalepsy on every YouTube, every sort of everything I could. I finally found it on Spotify, and so there was a great 3-song demo that he had done. Obituary Fear, a number of other 3 other songs, 2 other songs. Anyway, it's a great band. I just there it is. Look at that. I had
Oh,
the Evil
sick.
Within, an Offering, and Obituary Fear. Yep, what a
Obituary
great
Fear.
demo that I had. That exact same one. Ross had given it to me back in the day. What a great band that was. Very great vocalist, great riffs, killer stuff. But yeah, I remember they were there at the time, and I remember they all had matching vehicles. Like
Oh,
they-
really?
like matching whatever Mercedes Benzes or BMWs or they
You
they were
mentioned
like
that, yeah.
5 right in this just a little industrial complex and a nothing complex and yeah, so yeah, they were there rehearsing. I remember Ross had talked a little bit about the thing, and I have since my Laura's mother, my mother-in-law, Mama Chicken, she is a fan of Ross Robinson's mother,
Oh, yeah, Byron Katie.
Byron Katie.
Yes.
And she had read somewhere that, Byron Katie has a son, a rock and roll producer. And she's like, I'm not familiar. Let me look on this. And she happened to look on YouTube and saw that YouTube episode where Ross is showing the picture that he had, whatchamacallit, he had, if you Google Ross Robinson's junk,
Oh, yeah,
you'll see
yeah.
it.
Yeah.
And he had a painting commissioned of him. I had no idea
Oh,
about
yeah,
this.
yeah. I forgot.
Yeah, it's all this. Yeah, that if you just,
Yeah, there's like a massive painting of you.
it is insane. Yeah, and that I know it's a few minutes into it. Like you'll see it. You won't miss it. If
Oh,
you
no,
just
it's
keep
fucking
scrolling.
massive. I
Yeah.
forgot about that, Gene.
Me too. I wasn't even thinking about it, but
It's a big fucking painting, dude.
that's pretty crazy.
Is that it?
Yeah, there
Oh,
you
there it is.
go.
Yeah, there it is. Gene, I forgot about that painting, dude.
You know what's kind of funny is Mark, your guy Mark and Dan came up to me a few months ago.
Of course, you told. Wow.
And they were like, "Is this true?" Like Ross was telling us this. And I was like, I had no idea. Like, this got sent to me like just a couple of years ago.
A
But
couple of years ago.
yeah, I have no idea how old this is. I never knew any of this, but I do remember, Korn being there. And Ross was telling me one time, he was like, "Yeah, we were listening to you when you had," because that's where, that's pretty fun.
That's sick.
I haven't changed, but
That's
still got the look and say, yeah, God, that's really fun. There you go. Same dude, only with headphones now. So I've had this look. I could show you pictures of me when I was 14. I looked this exact
Fuck
same
yeah,
way.
dude.
But
That's you, man.
that's pretty amazing. Yeah. And Mama Chicken was just like, did you know about this? I'm like, I had no idea, but I've known Ross forever, man. Ross is great. And, I loved Catalepsy. They were really good. But he was saying that, yeah, he was telling me about this sort of era. And that's when Devin and I were in that same studio for just a couple of days. We were rehearsing the strapping album, City. And,
Oh.
that was a pretty brutal record, pretty amazing album. And so, Ross was saying that we would stand outside your door and just listen to you, you're just roaring through this double bass and Devin's in there just, ripping on guitar and screaming along and all this sort of stuff. And
Devin Townsend.
yeah.
Okay.
And so that was pretty darn fun. So, we weren't there very long. Devin and I were only there for, a day here and there kind of thing. We didn't rehearse City very often, but I remember there was a truckload of shoes brought in for Korn. Like just where that office, it was a tiny little office. I mean, it was a tiny little studio and stuff. And
Wow, got sent shoes. That's dope.
right. They were just like just stacks and stacks of what Adidas, I
Sure.
would imagine, they got a lot of shoes sent to them there. That was really fun. But yeah, there you go.
So I was trying to look at the timeline because they're writing that. It's probably early '96,
Yep.
Okay.
Mhm.
So I was like, okay, so
March
Gene-
of '96.
okay, so I'm thinking, okay, Gene already did Symbolic.
Mm-hmm.
Is he out of the band already and already going into the next thing?
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And actually, that was right around the time when, it wasn't that far before that when I had gone to that doctor and he had said, hey, you figure out what you need to do about your stress levels.
Oh wow.
And that's because I was in between death and hadn't had strapping yet. So
Oh shit.
I was just trying to figure out what am I going to do in this little downtime. And that's when I decided to start giving drum lessons, just to
Okay.
bring in some income kind of thing. And that was my stress. It's like, okay, you're not on tour, you're not with the band, you have no direct, direct anything on the books at the moment. So, I'm stressing a little bit about
Oh yeah.
finances. So,
I'll
and
catch
that's
up
when
to
I
you.
was like, that's when I put together go down to, Backstage Studios over there in Orange County and just do some, hey, that's really fun too. Look at you there.
Wow.
That's a 17-year-old Gene right there. That's me as the executioner there.
Oh wow.
That's pretty fun. Yeah,
Okay.
Savage Grace. That was another band that I did lights for. They played a million shows with Slayer back in the day. And
Savage Grace.
right.
Okay.
I remember they had asked me to join. They went over and played one of the early Aardschok festivals, which was the early Dynamo festivals, that's one of the Godfather festivals, European festivals. Went away for a lot of years, has recently come back. And I remember they went over there and played. That was in '85, and Metallica was debuting a new track from the next record, Disposable Heroes. They were playing that on tour 8 months before Master of Puppets was out. And I remember getting a bunch of tapes from that. And
Sure.
Yeah, I just remember Savage Grace going over there, playing a lot of shows with Metallica over there,
Yeah.
kind of thing.
Hmm.
And they asked me to join, and they were like, it was kind of like a Spinal Tap moment. They're like, we don't think this thrash metal thing is going to go very far. So
Oh, wow.
I think you got a better shot at playing with us, because they were not quite thrash. They were kind of a speed metal Iron Maiden kind of thing. So anyway, Savage Grace, pretty
Awesome.
fun.
That's awesome.
I have stories about everything.
Oh
Chris.
fuck yeah.
I
So
tell ya.
were you working on this record when Korn was doing Peachy?
Yes.
Oh, that's sick. Okay, I'm gonna jam this. Did you happen to listen at all to what they were doing in there?
No.
No, not at all. You weren't like you weren't curious.
No.
I thought you'd be like, what the fuck they doing in there? Sounds like shit.
Well, the one thing that was the owner of the studio, Rob Glonia, I remember his name.
Dude, your memory, dude. My goodness, dude, this keeps going.
Well, I remember it was in the middle of all their rehearsals, and he took me into their room, and he just opened his room, and he's like, "Look at this." They they turned that room into an absolute pigsty, like garbage and rotting fruit and fast food carcasses just laying over. He's like, these motherfuckers are fucking slobs. Look at this fucking shit they're leaving. I'm gonna have to charge these guys $1,000 for cleanup fee. And I'm like, well, I'm sure they'll
Sick.
pay it. You know, I don't see any problem with that. But yeah, that was that's what I remember about them being there. And I just remember like the fact that Devin had already done that Steve Vai record that he did, which was whatever album Devin did with Steve Vai, dang it. Sex and Religion, I think it was. It was a killer record. Had a great video for, I remember the song was Down Deep Into the Pain. Great video. Devin looked amazing in it. And I remember reading very recently after that how Korn was very influenced by Steve Vai.
Oh, yeah.
When it came to the 7 strings. And I was like, I bet you they had no idea that was, you know, that kid playing guitar as they were listening. I remember when Ross would tell me, yeah, we stood outside your door and we listened to you guys ripping it up. And that was the only band I was playing with, was just Devin. And, you know, I was like, I bet you they had no idea that was the guy from Steve Vai, you know, because it was just I don't even think they knew it was Devin at the time.
Oh, yeah.
Devin was a pretty unknown kid at the time. He'd done that Steve Vai record. And that was about it.
Fucking haircut.
Right.
Look at that haircut.
Right.
If you're just listening, I'm sorry. I can't describe Devin's haircut. It's fucking unbelievable.
Right. Pre-skullet.
Skullet? Like a dreadlock skullet?
Well, that's
what you would...
That's what he evolved into. Like, if you look at Devin's skullet, yeah,
Let's
he had the
go.
dreadlock skullet there going. And I remember he would refer to his head as, my head looks like an ostrich egg wearing a hula skirt. And you'll see some pictures of Dev back in the skullet era of the Alien era.
Oh, at the Alien era. That's like the...
Devin. Yeah, you'll see the skullet. There's a skullet right there. Yeah,
Attaboy.
right there.
Get it, dude. It's fucking get it, dude. How long were you in strapping?
God dang, that was a dozen years essentially.
Yeah, a while, huh?
And you know, there was a period where there wasn't quite a strapping, but there was definitely a lot of Devin Townsend stuff. So you know, Devin and I done a lot of work together. Absolutely, you know.
Gene, you mentioned actually it might be this era. You mentioned there's metal had a lot of lean years.
Indeed.
And you kept putting out records. Like it didn't matter if it was like trendy or not, or like or went through a low. You just like you throughout the lean years are just going to keep putting out records.
Indeed. Absolutely.
When what year is that actually? When you were like, oh, this is like, fuck.
Well, for me, like it just never went away. You know, like a lot of people kind of. I remember when you know grunge got big, and I remember like hearing Nirvana's Bleach I remember getting an advance of that in 1989. I think was when that album came out, and I had the advance cassette of that. And I was like, there is so much thrash metal involved in this. Listen to a song like Negative Creep. That is a thrash metal song. And there is so much like riffage that just reminds me of thrash riffage with a little bit of the garage. There was no grunge. It was called garage rock back in those days, kind of thing. And there's a bit of that, you know, DIY garage sort of mentality. They're not playing overloaded, distorted guitars. I'll tell you a really interesting, really fun story. That is my friend Jason Everman, who is on right there.
Really?
Yeah. And you see that circle that is on his guitar, on his telly there?
Yeah.
That circle there. I was like, he's a good friend of Byron from Strapping, and I see Jason as much as I can. He's an awesome dude. He did the Joe Rogan show a few years ago. He's a fascinating individual. Jason Everman.
Yeah.
He went from Nirvana to Soundgarden, but I was asking him, hey, what's that sticker on your guitar? He's like, well, that's actually not a sticker. That is an inlay of Venom's At War with Satan album.
Oh.
So Venom, is represented on Nirvana.
Oh wow.
It's an inlay of that. He turned it into that thing right there. That CD right there.
Oh wow.
That is what is on that. Jason is OG thrash metal. And if you look right down there, that is King Diamond, right where the arrow is.
Yeah.
Somebody pointed out that is a sideways picture of King Diamond right down there. If you see
Oh,
the
what
actual
a
photograph
eye.
of this, I never saw that. But yeah, so that's pretty damn fun. Yeah, Jason went from Nirvana to Soundgarden. He then played in Soundgarden for a number of months. There's a lot of photos of him with Sound. Oh, there it is. Look at
Oh,
there.
we found it.
Yeah, come on, blow it up.
That duct tape job is fucking
Right.
gnarly. Oh
Yeah.
wow.
That's what he was saying it was. So there you go.
What
So
a eye.
Oh, and
To
there
fucking
you go.
see
King
that?
Diamond right there. I
There
see
it
somebody
is.
pointing an arrow to it. Somebody else pointed that out.
What a wow.
How cool is that?
Man.
But that was full thrash metal to me, and I could be mistaken, but I thought Byron had mentioned Byron from Strapping, who was pals with Kurt Cobain. I remember Kurt stayed at his house a few times, and I remember Byron's mom saying, "I didn't like that Kurt kid very much." But I think Byron was telling me that it was Kurt who turned him on to Darkness Descends from Dark Angel, I think.
Oh wow.
So I was like, okay, I always thought that there was so much thrash metal involved in so much grunge, you know?
Yeah.
And that's where I felt. And so when people were asking me, did grunge kill metal? Did grunge kill thrash metal? I was like, no, you know, if anything, death metal killed thrash metal. Because, I mean,
Oh, interesting. I never heard
thrash
that.
metal was always the heaviest thing around when thrash metal was doing thrash metal.
Mhm.
And then all of a sudden came, you know, death metal, a little level up in the extremities. Get that with the blast beat, grindcore, a lot of stuff like that. And so that's where I was like, God, grunge it was influenced by thrash metal, you know. I remember meeting Lane Staley once. Terry Date introduced me to Lane Staley once at one of those Concrete Foundations forums. It was this convention that would go on every year in Los Angeles, and Lane Staley was, when Terry was like, Gene's in Dark Angel, I'm doing their record right now, and he's like, Dark Angel, God, I love you guys, man. I saw your show at the Underground up in Seattle, and you know, I love your vocalist. And I was like, ironic, you know, you and my vocalist sound very similar together, you know. So that was pretty neat. So we were definitely getting a nod from the grunge guys for thrash metal. But
Oh, wow.
you know, I mean, grunge came along, and there was nothing wrong with it. I mean,
Yeah.
Soundgarden was my favorite band in 1988, 89.
Was it?
They were amazing. Yeah, they're like their FOP EP, and then they put out Ultra Mega OK in late 88. What an amazing album that is. And you know, the next one, Louder Than Love, that was a great record. Alice in Chains' Facelift, that was a great record as well. And you know, I became pals with Kim Thiel back in, you know, he came to our Seattle show, you know, and we became pals then. And I'd go to all the Soundgarden shows. They were playing tiny clubs in Los Angeles, like Jezebel's, you know, around the corner from here, you know,
Yeah.
like right up the 22, Peabody's or wherever it was, Jacobs, just trying to, Joshua's Parlor, you know, like tiny little venues. And yeah, I've been pals ever since. And you know, when there was those lean years, I guess,
Yeah.
it was always really easy to see that this was all cyclical. It's all going to return. If something goes away for a while, it's going to come back at some point. So I remember when I stepped away from Dark Angel, I was like, hey guys, we're going to reunite in, you know, 10 years, and we're going to come back and we're going to play shows bigger than ever. And everybody was like, sure, Gene. But sure enough, you know, it took us 20 years to
Until I was
reunite.
20. I don't know, a whole other fucking decade.
Right?
Yeah, but it happened though.
Absolutely.
know?
So there you go. And then that was, you know, it's really easy. If something look at now. I hear that new metal is making some kind of real
Oh yeah, it's massive
resurgence.
now. Yeah, it's crazy.
There you go. And it's real easy to see. You know, there's no Nostradamus. I used to be a really good Nostradamus when it would come to bands. I would tell people, check out this Nirvana band, check out Soundgarden, check out Alice in Chains and all these bands. Check out this Typo Negative band. They're going to be killer. I
Nice.
didn't expect Typo Negative to change their sound and do what they did. And they became even more massive than
Oh wow.
I thought they were going to ever be, because I was a huge fan of Slow, Deep, and Hard,
Okay.
which is nothing like their Swans influenced later material, the October Rust and whatever the Black Number One
Yeah.
sort of big gothic era that they had. Bloody Kisses, that one. That sort of thing. I'm such a fan of music that it didn't take a real Nostradamus to say, hey, what's big 20 years ago is going to become big again. That seems to be the way things go, and that's fair. Thrash metal has had its resurgence. Now
Yeah.
most of the folks you see at the shows, all the folks that you see in the pit are all the young little 20-year-old dudes with have the battle jackets, and my dad turned me on to you guys, kind of thing. So
Oh,
hey, we're
wow.
grateful for all of it. So there you
That-
go.
yeah, it's cool. You having the perspective of hindsight, Gene. What do you have like your own version of like best thrash bands, like like a top I don't know, favorite one, or like a top 5 or something?
I know I might have some kind of contrarian viewpoint to others, but I mean, aggressive thrash metal is my favorite style of metal. It's
Yeah.
my favorite kind of metal. And, you know, however, a lot of my favorite thrash bands, like an all-time classic thrash album for me is Artillery's Terror Squad. That's a
Mm.
beautiful, perfect thrash metal album, I feel. It came out in, tragic cover and everything.
But what?
I
What's
think
this
that's
cover?
I think that's a rat, and I think they're on a subway,
Oh
and
my
I think it's some
gosh.
cops, and maybe it's a surgery
Oh
guy,
my
and who
goodness.
knows what's happening with that cover. But boy, let me tell you, the music is the antithesis to that cover, because the music is full quality, kick-ass, riffy thrash metal. It's
Nice.
awesome. The vocals are great. The singer's named Fleming Ronsdorf, and he's a great vocalist. He doesn't sound like anybody else. And
Mm.
there was another band from Chicago called Cyclone Temple, and in 1991 they put out an album called I Hate, Therefore I Am.
Oh wow.
That is an all-time classic. That is such a fantastic, like, there it is.
Boom.
Boy, that is some guitar rhythm guitar savagery on that one. Played by a man named Greg Fulton, who is 6'8", and he is a giant human being. And he was in a band called Snow White. They've been on a few compilation records, and they had a career going. But that is a great record. That's got great vocals on it. I believe the vocalist there is the guy sitting there at the bottom. His name is Brian Trock. I believe his name Troch or Trock.
Hmm.
And there you go. It's Brian. I've never known how to spell his name. I just assume it's Troch, Troch. Produced by a guy named Tom Suarez from like the Connecticut era, and that guy was a great producer. He had a great ear, and he just had really killer sounding tones.
Hmm.
Wargasms, Why Play Around, also produced by him. Great production. And another classic, it's not quite thrash, but it is just an absolute classic album, is Cro-Mag's Alpha Omega.
Okay.
That is just like the vocals on that, Harley Flanagan, my word, God, he just did the greatest vocal job. Yeah, that's a photo from the record there.
Beautiful.
Like, I know they give John Joseph a lot of credit for the vocals on there, but I don't think that's John Joseph singing on that. I think it's definitely Harley, and Harley has
Really?
one of the most amazing soulful thrash metal voices. Just like the vocals on this album are amazing. The riffs on this, it is such a riff-tastic album. Like, for a guitar player, man, like the riffs are just insane. Like, great guitar playing on there, and great drumming from Dave DiCenzo. He's now a teacher. The drummer on the left there, he's now a teacher over at Berkeley, and so the drumming is great on it. Great production on this album. So there's so many classics, and of course, you got all the all the standard classics from everybody,
Of
like
course.
all the, like when it comes to, like I say, when it comes to a Slayer record, for instance, my favorite is Haunting the Chapel, because that was like a large elevation, like from, Show No Mercy, and it's pretty common, story now that I made my vinyl debut on Show No Mercy, on the opening track, Evil Has No Boundaries.
Yeah. Is it true you were holding down the carpet?
No, I was holding on this one. I was holding down Dave's drums because there
What is
was no
this?
carpet.
Oh, okay.
There, there was no
That's what it
carpet.
was. Okay.
Yeah,
There's no
so
carpet.
yeah,
I was like, I would say, what, holding carpet or holding no carpet? Okay, got it.
yeah, and
Sick.
yeah, it was just like, Dave was out there tracking. He was about to start tracking, and he 1 minute into playing the first song was which I think was Chemical Warfare. He was, you hear him yelling from the other room saying, "Hey, can somebody, my drums are walking. Can somebody come in and, just hold my drums down?" And sure enough, like 6 heads turn and look at me.
Oh, yeah.
Like, "Hey, you're the drummer here.
Yeah.
You go do this." And so I've told this story many times where I'm down on my hands and knees, and I got my arms going between, mic stands and cymbal stands and tom stands, and I'm holding on to his drums. And the intro to Show No Mercy is, I'm the intro to Chemical Warfare is, the toms right here, and that, that tom. Actually, his tom color was about the color of that ceiling up there, that little purple color. And I'm looking through his toms. He had clear drum heads that were kind of purple, and I just see that stick right there, and I'm just like, "Oh my God, Dave, if please get this done in like 1 or 2 takes, because I'm gonna die." If I have to listen to, like, if I'm gonna have to be here for like 15 takes or something, I'm gonna die. This is gonna kill me.
Yeah.
And nailed it in 1 take, and then did 1 quick safety take after that. And but that's how I always remember the song Chemical Warfare from Slayer. That's
That's
what I always
rad.
see in my head, just Dave's Dave's stick. That
Oh
thing
my
was
goodness.
right above my head. So I've got a neat perspective on that song that nobody else has, kind of thing. So that's pretty fun.
That's rad. I'm a big fan of Fear Factory. I was curious how that time was for you, because I heard like the first 2 weeks were kind of like a struggle trying to jam those songs.
For me, yeah, because I hadn't played drums in like 8 months before that, because I was working on this record that was keeping me in the studio for a long time. So
I was like, oh, I mean, if it's Genome, I wonder what the gig had before that, because yeah, I think you mentioned that you didn't have the double bass chops.
no, not at
No.
all. No.
Oh.
And, because I had spent a lot of months on the guitar playing side of things, with an album that I was working on called Lifer from the band Meldrum. And that had taken up all of my time because I was playing a lot of guitar and bass on that. Laura Christine and myself, we were doing all the guitar and all the bass on that record, because our guitarist, Michelle Meldrum, who was the guitarist in War God, you might recognize her name from the War God era, but Michelle had passed away. And so Laura and I took it upon ourselves to complete the record. And so while we were recording and mixing and doing all that stuff and living up in Vancouver, and I wasn't concentrating on gigs at the time, when I did, and it's pretty well known. I mean, I pretty much announced that when Byron from Strapping Young Lad, who was also playing in Fear Factory, Byron had approached me and said, "Look, we're struggling to get it together with Raymond Herrera. It looks like Raymond isn't going to be involved in this. Can maybe can you do this?" And Byron's my brother, and so as a favor to Byron, I was like, sure, because I wasn't that wasn't quite my interest at the time, was to play with Fear Factory But for Byron, I'd do anything. So it's like, yeah, okay, well, let me get it together. I remember I had having all this focus that was outside of hauling double bass, you know. At the time, I was also doing a quick little project with a band called Pitch Black Forecast from Cleveland, which also features J-Man from Mushroom Head, if you're familiar with those guys. But there wasn't a lot of savage double bass. Yeah, that came along a little bit later, but we had working on that project as well as the Meldrum project. It just kept me from doing heavy duty double bass. So I remember the first couple of weeks was just kind of a struggle. And I remember Dino was just giving me nonstop, you know, like, dude, what's up with you? You know, like, what's up? I'm like, give me a moment. I'll get this. You know, don't worry. I'll get it. But just if you're expecting miracles right at this moment coming out of the blue, call Raymond, you know. But we got it together. And then by the time we tracked the record, I got all my chops together. But you know, we rehearsed it for a number of months and got it together. And I think Mechanized, you know, I thought that was a real good return to form for Fear Factory. You know, I think that was it was pretty. I think it was a savage record. It's been a long time since I've heard it, but I think it was, you know, it was no slouch in the Fear Factory catalog. I would venture to say, you know, a lot of people have come up to me over the years and just said, "Hey, God, that's my favorite Fear Factory record." So
I was jamming today. That's sick.
Yeah, man, there you go. I remember I had a band called Mechanism, and that's some of my most craziest drumming I've ever done. But,
Really?
But I remember Bert or Dino or somebody said, "Hey, yeah, we like that band Mechanism," and then all of a sudden the album's called Mechanized. So hey, there you go. So
attaboy.
Way to go.
Hey, Gene, just because it's you, what's you have like what would you tell a drummer? What's advice for you would give to like a drummer? As far as like playing.
Okay, because I would tell any musician, seriously, and you would know this, learn how to read contracts. If this is something you wish to do, learn how to read contracts. Get to know that side of the biz. But when it comes to playing, as anybody would say, you know, following your own vision. Like I come from a background of people telling me you can't do it this way. You can't do that. Like playing open-handed.
Oh,
When I
sure.
was in high school, when I was in junior high and high school, people telling me you're wrong for doing this. You have to play this. I'm like, why? That's not comfortable.
Yeah.
Shut up, you know,
Yeah.
kind of thing. Like, don't tell me what to do. And so that's where, you know, I always felt like even at a young age, I felt confident in the fact that it's like, look, I might not know everything, but I do know me and I know what works for me. And I know that I'm going to approach everything in ways that work for me. Like, look, believe me, playing with leg weights is not the average drummer's approach to things. But I'm like, well, hell, playing with leg weights is going to, you know, it's like training for any kind of aerobic athletic sport.
Yeah.
You train really tough, and then the actual, you know, the actual game itself is really easy. Like Ron from Dark Angel and I, he was discussing recently, you know, how Mike Tyson would train, you know, for any sort of boxing match. You know, he would run for 10 miles a day or whatever it was every single day and get his cardio so up that by the time he's fighting the fight, you know, that's the easy part, you know, the actual fight itself, because you've done all this training leading up to it. So I utilize all sorts of athletic background. Like I had a baseball background growing up where it got to the point where it's like, you know, while I was making all my choices of like, I'm going to do this rock and roll thing for a living, I also had the very likely probability that I could have become a pro baseball player. And so a lot of those baseball approaches I put towards drums. Like, like when a batter's in the on deck circle and they're swinging the bat that has the donut on it.
Oh, yeah.
You swing that bat around. The donut is a a pound weight. Yeah, there you go. There's an example of one.
Oh, I
And
like donuts.
you can right swinging that bat around in the batters in the on deck circle. There's a classic donut. Yeah, there you go. There's the donuts, the orange things right there. That's the classic donut there.
Oh,
And when you pop that donut off, your bat's a lot lighter. And so,
Yeah.
like for me to play with leg weights, I'm sure there's a million shots of me all over the internet with me playing with leg weights on. If I'm playing drums with leg weights on, when I pop those leg weights off,
You're
it's
flying.
the same sort of concept as the batter's donut. So try to apply that kind of athletic approach. And yeah, there you go. There's some leg weights right there. So there you go. Boy, that looks like, where is that from? Oh, good question. It looks like from probably one of my DVDs, I would imagine. Yeah, maybe. And so there you go. That's, apply that. And another thing I will use, I still have those beater balls. Those beater balls are from my very first. Those are my first Camco pedals.
Oh,
I
really?
forget how old this is, but those pedals I used for 20 years, and they were
20 years.
yeah. I used those pedals for 25 years, I think, and then I switched over to the Pearl Redline series. And so I think this might be for, I don't even know what I'm playing here. Where am I doing this? I have no idea what this is for. So, oh, I can tell
Sick.
that's Ash Pearson's kit. Okay. Well, that is, maybe this is for Drumeo or something. Shoot, I don't know. But, anyway, so you got the leg weights, and I also use, what I've done now is I'll tape 3 drumsticks together, and I use those as warm-up sticks. So 3 of those actual sticks there.
3 of them.
Yeah, I'll tape 3 of those together, and those are my warm-up sticks. And so I'll just, do a lot of warming up for them. Same concept as the batter's donut. You toss those aside, you use your other sticks, and you
You're
can
flying.
fly. Yeah,
You're
your sticks are really light.
A
So
flying blast beat.
yeah, so that's what that's the approach I try to use with all that. And so yeah, there you go. That's just some big sticks that I'm using right there. But and so I would suggest to any young drummer is don't listen to anybody other than yourself. Like
Yeah.
if somebody tries to tell you no or you can't, or not to sound or just trite, but question authority. Like just because somebody else tells you to do something that you're doing this wrong. I don't think there's any sort of wrong approaches. So yeah, there you go. There's not a lot that there's no approach where you if you can follow your own what makes you feel good, what makes you feel right, what makes you feel like yes, I can see my gains,
Yeah.
from this approach that I'm taking that maybe nobody else does. Follow that. You can't go wrong with that if you're following what your instincts are telling you. I there's so much of this stuff that's merely instinct. I didn't learn from a book. I've never taken a drum lesson. I am so self-taught, but I've been taught by the masters, by all the records I listened to growing up, all the Neil Pearts and Tommy Aldridges and Cozy Powells and everybody, Terry Bozio's. I'm learning from all these guys. So that was, getting lessons on a song by song basis from everybody. That's how I was able to learn. So utilize everything you can to learn drums. Like, I turn signals are great click track when you're sitting at a left turn and you're waiting to turn, like you turn your turn signal on and that makes a nice click track. And in some of the older cars, they would do a shuffle beat, like the turn signal would be
You go into a quick shuffle.
yeah, right. You
stoplight.
tap on your thing. I use everything that I can to become some kind of, just I utilize all approaches, and there's if it feels right, go with it. So there's having the approach. Music is such an infinite thing that God, how can
Yeah.
people put like some box around something? Even
Yeah.
I realize in the music that I tend to play, a lot of it is, there's a box involved. I think it's a rather large box, but there the musical infinity that any individual's approach can have at, the sky's the limit. Utilize that when you're learning your instrument, like you're an amazingly talented guitarist, as is everybody in your band. Like everybody's a talented
Gene.
musician. So, you know, I'm sure you've never felt like, there's a ceiling to what you're allowed to
No,
do.
never.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And so that's why there are no ceilings for anything. So just go into all aspects of your musical expression with the fact that there are no ceilings. And how many folks are watching this right now that might come up with an approach somewhere down the road that is like becomes canon to us all? You never know.
You never know.
Right.
Yeah. How do you feel about the what they call them, double strokes?
Mm-hmm.
Or like, do you remember first hearing those? I'm like, what the fuck is that?
Well, I remember doing some, and I like when I was, I don't know, maybe 14. I had somebody. I remember it was a friend of my sister's. My sister was 5 years older than me, so it was somebody that maybe she knew that was a little bit older than me, and they were going to give me my very first drum lesson. And I remember on our way out to the garage, I stopped by the kitchen was right next to the garage. And I remember just as I was about to open up the door to the garage, our oven was right there, and I did some double strokes, some double strokes on the, just did some of those, just really, that's a double stroke.
Yeah.
1 2 1 2 1 2, just did those really quick. And the guy that was supposed to give me my lesson was just like, what the hell is that? I'm just like, what? I have no idea. He's like, those are doubles. I can't do those. I'm like, it doesn't sound like it sounds like a pretty basic little, I wasn't even doing anything. I was just like, I'm just waiting to, I just that really fast. And he's like, I can't do those. So I don't think I can even teach you anything. And I'm like, okay, well, there goes that lesson out the door. And so I just never took a lesson after that. But I've given myself plenty of them, like I'm constantly getting lessons. I've even learned how to, like, even with the drum. Hey, my socks match your carpet.
Oh, sick.
That's pretty fun. God, what was I thinking with those socks?
Where'd you get those socks?
God,
Jesus.
probably Walmart, maybe. Who knows?
Oh my goodness.
What the hell am I doing? Oh, you can tell that's gonna be kind of a shuffle there to some degree.
What's this?
I have no idea.
What fucking beat was that?
I have no idea.
You're just
fooling around, man.
You were just you were out in you were somewhere else.
Yeah, right. Yeah, man. That's pretty fun.
You were channeling something, dude. Wow.
Yeah, I'm not even sure what I'm doing here. What double slap technique? Oh, it's from Drumeo. Yeah, shoot, man, I barely remember doing this. Yeah, there's Ash. That's my drum son right there, Ash Pearson from Revocation and 3 Inches of Blood.
Oh yeah, shout out.
Yeah, man, I've known Ash since he was a teenager, and I refer to him as my drum son.
Oh hell yeah,
because he's becoming a legend himself. So that's really cool. And so yeah, he's been involved with tons of my stuff that I've done over the years, all the strapping era stuff. And
nice.
This is back when he was working with Drumeo, and he's playing with Revocation now. If you're familiar with them, they're
yeah.
ball crushing band, one of my all time favorites. So that's pretty cool.
Hell yeah.
But yeah, if you have an open mind, that's the most thing I can, that's the most thing I could tell any young drummer is like, use all your influences. Listen to everything. Like, it's okay if you want to
Yeah.
bring in a jazz influence or a pop influence or if you hear something on your car turn signal that you could use as an influence. You know,
Wow.
the sky is the limit.
That's awesome.
So always keep a very open mind towards everything, and feel free to use every sort of approach that you can, because that's the only way that our instrument grows. You know, like all the approaches that are, guys 100 years ago are not using the approaches that we use today, and that's
Yeah.
because somebody said, "Hey, nobody says I can't do this, so I'm going to do this,"
Yeah.
kind of thing. So there you go. You can do anything. That's really what it comes down to.
That's beautiful, Gene. Is there anything that I might have missed? Is there anything that you want out there about Dark Angel or about you?
Well, let me see. Well, I suppose. I mean, like Dark Angel. By the time like this gets aired this coming Monday.
Yes,
Well,
this Monday.
Dark Angel, we have a brand new record called Extinction Level Event, obviously coming out, and all I ask is people to check it out, give it a listen. Thank you for all the stuff that you're showing up on here on it. And one thing that we are also doing, I've noticed a couple of times on the old Ocarino there, that you guys are showing our upcoming tour.
Yes.
The Extinction Level Event tour with Sacred Reich and Hyrax and Violence and Midnight and
Starts in
Void
San Diego.
and Interceptor. And so, yeah, look at there, boy, what a great kick-ass tour
Wow.
this is going to be. God, we're super excited for it. And, like I've said many, many times, it's like if you just want a really fun, kick-ass night of badass metal, come on out to this. You're gonna dig it, and do not be the person that gets the phone call the next day saying, "Where were you? My God, what a great
yeah.
night!" And Dark Angel is bringing a very, very relentless set. That's what we do. We're pretty savage live, so we're going to be playing a ton of new songs off the new record. So, we just recently completed our Darkness Descends in its entirety run, which is pretty darn amazing. That's a pretty
sick.
intense record. And so that was, we've done that. And so now we're ready to move forward with the next chapter. And we're really excited for it. So come on out, get loud, get crazy, bring your kids. Chances are you are anyway. So that's pretty good.
It's a longer run too. That's way over a month.
Yeah, it's about 6.5 weeks, something like it. It's pretty hardy, but yeah, God, look at all them dates. Oh my God, it just doesn't stop now, does it?
Man,
So
who routed this thing?
right, yeah,
Fuck.
yeah. There you go. But yeah, it's gonna be
5 weeks. It's long. Is that longer than 5 weeks?
yeah, it's like
Jesus,
6.
Gene.
Yeah, I think it's pushing 6, something like that.
You don't give
yeah,
a
something.
fuck. You don't give a shit, dude.
Right, and I come back directly from this and start the Death to All run directly
I know. And then you have.
afterwards.
I was looking at dates. I'm like, wait, are these? Am I looking at a different year?
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
man, these are just directly right after each other.
Holy
so
crap! Yeah, one of the death dates.
those start in early November. Yeah, when
So you
is
have
it?
2 to 3 weeks off, huh?
About that. Yeah, maybe 2 weeks off. I think maybe. Yeah, I'm not quite sure. The death dates. Fortunately, those do start in San Diego as well.
Oh wow!
Which
So
that's
awesome.
that's helpful. That's helpful for the routing for me anyway. Because we can rehearse at Laura and my studio, bring the guys in, do some rehearsing, and that's always helpful.
Yeah.
So yeah, that starts pretty immediately afterwards, and that's going to be with Gore Guts and our good pals Gore Guts. So there you go. It's going to be pretty darn awesome.
Great. Yeah. So we got the Dark Angel dates and then the Death to All dates.
Absolutely.
And your record out this Friday.
That's right.
Maybe we could play because I literally right when we walked in, I just literally just saw an email saying if you can play a little bit of it.
Okay,
I'll
badass. That's your call.
I'll try to play like we could play exactly 8 seconds. Yes, let's do this. Let's just crank it. So if you were to pick a 8-section banger, Gene, where should we start from?
Okay, well, let me see. I guess you only have what is available on YouTube, I would say.
Yes.
I would get just anywhere after the first 8 seconds of this song, because it does start off with
Or
this works.
Yeah, crank it. Oh, that's a riff. Sick, dude.
There
Nice.
you go. Well, thank you, Chris.
Cool. So this is Monday. So new record. Tour starts the same freaking day,
Right?
and you'll be out for
Forever.
over 2 months.
Yeah, something
Dude,
like
you're
that.
fucking crazy, dude.
Well, I've been on-
Still doing it. Still not slowing down. That also inspires me, Gene.
Excellent. Well, like I say, it's a very, relatively speaking, it's an easy life. Like
Yeah.
we get to play music for a living. We get to go on tour for a living. That is such a dream life to have, that we just need to, acknowledge that and just
Yeah, man.
accept it as like, hey, we're in a very fortunate position. So I'm, I count my blessings on
Totally.
a daily basis. Absolutely.
Well, Gene, honored to hang out with you, man. Thank
Honor
you
was mine, Chris. Thank you very much.
Appreciate it,
brother.
man.
I appreciate you.
All right, everyone. That's it. Later.
Oh.